The frosted glass door swung open, and Wyatt Mercer's entire world shattered in 3 seconds flat. There she stood, Vivian Cross, Seattle's Ice Queen billionaire CEO, half-dressed and furious. His toolbox hit the floor. His daughter's face flashed through his mind, and the only words that escaped his lips were the most pathetic truth he'd ever spoken. Please, I have a daughter. What happened next would change everything. Twice he'd save her life, once she'd save his soul, and together they'd unravel a conspiracy that wanted them both destroyed. This is the story of how an invisible maintenance man became the one person a billionaire couldn't afford to lose. If you're watching from anywhere in the world, drop your city in the comments below. I want to see how far this story travels. And if you're already hooked, hit that like button and settle in, because what's coming next is a 2-hour journey you won't forget. The fluorescent lights in the basement maintenance office buzzed like dying wasps at 4:30 in the morning. Wyatt Mercer sat hunched over a cracked laminate table, his daughter's drawing taped to the wall beside him, a crayon rendering of 2 stick figures holding hands under a lopsided sun. The taller figure wore a tool belt. The smaller one had yellow hair like sunrise. Lily had drawn it 3 months ago, back when she still asked when Mommy was coming home. Wyatt didn't answer that question anymore. There were no good answers. Just the truth. Rebecca had left on a Tuesday morning with a suitcase and a man Wyatt had never met, and she hadn't looked back. The divorce papers came certified mail. The custody arrangement gave him everything: full custody, full responsibility, full weight of a 6-year-old's broken heart pressing down on his shoulders every single day. He was 24 years old. He worked the graveyard maintenance shift at Cross Tech Industries because it paid $11 more per hour than the day shift. And those $11 meant Lily could stay in her school, keep her friends, sleep in her own bed instead of a shelter cot. He'd chosen the overnight hours deliberately: sleep when she slept, wake when she woke, walk her to the bus stop every morning at 7:45 with her frozen lunchbox and her bright purple backpack. The system worked. Barely. It worked if he didn't get sick, didn't miss a shift, didn't make a single mistake that might cost him this job. His radio crackled. "Mercer, you copy?" Wyatt grabbed the handset. "Copy." Got an emergency call. Executive wing, 20th floor. Power outage in the CEO's private office suite. They want it fixed 10 minutes ago. Wyatt's stomach tightened. The executive wing, 20 floors up from the belly of the building where he usually worked, replacing ballasts and unclogging drains and fixing things nobody with a corner office ever thought about. "On my way," he said. He grabbed his toolbox and headed for the service elevator, his work boots echoing in the empty corridor. Seattle's skyline glittered through the narrow basement windows, a city that never quite slept, full of people climbing ladders Wyatt would never reach. He didn't resent it. He just wanted to survive it. The elevator climbed. Wyatt checked his watch, 4:47. Lily's alarm would go off at 6:30. He needed to be home by 6:15 to make her breakfast, pack her lunch, braid her hair the way she liked even though his fingers were clumsy and he always missed strands. She never complained. She just smiled up at him with her gap-toothed grin and said, "You're the best daddy ever." God, he hoped that was true. The elevator doors opened onto the 20th floor, and Wyatt stepped into a different world. Polished marble floors, recessed lighting, abstract art that probably cost more than his annual salary. The air smelled like expensive coffee and leather furniture. He felt like an intruder, like someone would realize he didn't belong here and escort him back down to the basement where the invisible people worked. He found the CEO's suite at the end of the hall, frosted glass doors with Vivian Cross etched in sleek silver letters. The lights were dead. Wyatt tried the handle. Locked. He pulled out his master key card, the one maintenance carried for emergencies. The lock clicked. He pushed the door open and stepped into darkness. "Hello?" he called softly. "Maintenance. I'm here to fix the power." No answer. The suite was silent except for the hum of the city outside, 20 stories of glass and steel separating him from the streets where real people lived. Wyatt moved carefully, using his flashlight to navigate. The CEO's office was huge, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Elliott Bay, a desk the size of his kitchen table, bookshelves lined with awards and framed magazine covers. He found the breaker panel behind a decorative screen, flipped it open. Half the circuits had tripped. Probably a surge from the storm that had rolled through earlier. Simple fix. He started resetting them one by one, and the lights began flickering back to life. That's when he heard the sound. Movement. Behind him. In the adjoining room. Wyatt turned, his heart suddenly loud in his ears. There was another door, slightly ajar, leading deeper into the suite. A private bathroom, maybe. Or a... He didn't think. He just moved. His supervisor had told him to fix the power fast, get in and get out, don't leave the CEO waiting. So Wyatt walked across that plush carpet and pushed open the frosted glass door. The woman inside spun around. She was in the middle of changing clothes. Dress shirt unbuttoned, slacks unzipped, her expression shifting from surprise to fury in the span of a heartbeat. She was tall, maybe 5'10", with dark hair pulled back and eyes like blue ice. Beautiful in the way glaciers were beautiful, remote, untouchable, dangerous if you got too close. Wyatt's brain short-circuited. This was Vivian Cross. The Vivian Cross. Forbes 30 under 30. The woman who'd built a billion-dollar tech empire before she turned 28. The woman whose face was on the cover of Fast Company in the break room, whose name employees whispered with equal parts admiration and terror. And he just walked in on her half-dressed. Wyatt's toolbox slipped from his fingers and hit the floor with a deafening crash. I'm so sorry. The power was out. I thought, get out! Her voice was Arctic cold. Please. The word came out broken, desperate. Please. I have a daughter. Vivian's eyes narrowed. What? I have a 6-year-old daughter. Wyatt was backing up, hands raised like she was pointing a gun at him instead of just staring him down with those frozen eyes. I'm a single dad. I need this job. I didn't mean to. I was just fixing the power. I swear. I didn't know anyone was in here. For 3 terrible seconds, she just stared at him. Then she said, the door wasn't locked. What? The door to this room. Vivian gestured sharply toward the frosted glass. I left it unlocked. That's my mistake, not yours. Wyatt blinked. His pulse was hammering so hard he could feel it in his temples. I don't understand. You were doing your job. I failed to secure my private space. She buttoned her shirt with crisp, efficient movements, her face unreadable. What's your name? Wyatt Mercer, ma'am. How long have you worked here, Mr. Mercer? 14 months. And you have a daughter? Yes, ma'am. Lily. She's 6. Vivian studied him for a moment longer, and Wyatt felt like he was being scanned by some kind of advanced AI, cataloged and analyzed and filed away. Then she said, fix the power. Then go home to your daughter. This incident will not be reported. Relief hit him so hard his knees almost buckled. Thank you. Thank you so much. That's all, Mr. Mercer. He grabbed his toolbox and fled. What? Wyatt made it home by 6:10. His hands were still shaking as he unlocked the apartment door and stepped into the cramped 2-bedroom he'd fought so hard to keep. Lily's shoes were scattered by the door, light-up sneakers with unicorns on the sides. Her backpack hung on the hook he'd installed at her height. The kitchen was a disaster from last night's mac and cheese dinner, but he'd clean it after she left for school. He started the coffee maker and pulled eggs from the fridge. By the time Lily's alarm started playing its cheerful melody, he had scrambled eggs and toast ready, her lunchbox packed with a peanut butter sandwich and apple slices and the chocolate chip cookies he let her have on Wednesdays. Daddy? Lily appeared in the doorway, rubbing her eyes, her blonde hair a tangled mess around her sleepy face. Morning, sunshine. Wyatt crouched down and opened his arms, and she stumbled into them, warm and small and perfect. Sleep okay? Mm-hmm. Did you fix lots of stuff at work? Just some lights. He kissed the top of her head. Come on, let's get you ready. The morning routine unfolded the way it always did. Breakfast at the table, teeth brushed, hair braided while Lily watched cartoons. Wyatt's fingers worked through the familiar motions, creating something that looked almost neat, almost professional. Lily grinned at herself in the mirror. I love it, Daddy. You're easy to please, kiddo. Can we have pizza tonight? It's Wednesday. Wednesday is spaghetti night. But I want pizza. Spaghetti, Wyatt said firmly, then softened when her face fell. How about Friday? We'll get pizza Friday night and watch a movie. Her smile returned like the sun breaking through clouds. Deal. He walked her to the bus stop at 7:45 exactly, held her hand the whole way, kissed her forehead before she climbed aboard. She waved at him through the window, and he waved back until the bus turned the corner and disappeared. Then Wyatt went home and collapsed on the couch. He should sleep. He'd been awake for 22 hours straight, but his brain wouldn't shut down, kept replaying those 3 seconds in Vivian Cross's private room, the shock in her eyes, the moment she could have destroyed him with a single phone call to HR, the inexplicable mercy she'd shown instead. This incident will not be reported. Why? Why would a billionaire CEO let something like that slide? Why would she take responsibility for an unlocked door when she could have blamed him, fired him, made him disappear like he'd never existed? Wyatt didn't have answers. He just had a job, a daughter, and a growing sense that something had shifted in the foundation of his small, careful world. 2 weeks passed. Wyatt didn't hear anything from HR. No disciplinary notices, no pink slips. He showed up for his shifts, fixed what needed fixing, stayed invisible, the way he'd learned to stay invisible his whole life. Then on a Thursday night, his supervisor called him into the office. "Mercer, sit down." Wyatt sat. His heart was already racing. Frank Davidson was 50-something, ex-military, with a crew cut and a permanent scowl that softened exactly never. He pushed a folder across the desk. "Got a new assignment for you." "Sir?" "Executive support. They need someone on call for priority repairs in the C-suite. Pays $22 an hour, includes benefits package, day shift Monday through Friday." Wyatt stared at him. $22 an hour, benefits, day shift. That was impossible. That was the kind of position that required certifications he didn't have, experience he'd never gotten, connections he'd never made. "I don't understand," Wyatt said slowly. "Why me?" "Someone upstairs requested you specifically." Frank's expression was unreadable. "Said you showed initiative and discretion during an emergency repair. Said you'd be a good fit." Vivian Cross. It had to be. Wyatt's mouth went dry. "When do I start?" "Monday, 7 a.m. Report to the 20th floor. You'll get your new credentials and assignment details then." Frank leaned back in his chair. "Don't screw this up, Mercer. Opportunities like this don't come twice." "Yes, sir." "Thank you, sir." Wyatt walked out of that office in a daze. 22 an hour meant he could afford decent groceries, could fix the leak in Lily's bedroom ceiling, could maybe, just maybe, start putting something away for her college fund. Day shift meant he'd see her more, be awake when she was awake, stop living like a ghost in his own daughter's life. It meant everything. And it had come from a woman he'd seen half-dressed for exactly 3 seconds. Thus, Monday morning arrived cold and clear. Wyatt dropped Lily at school and headed downtown, his stomach churning with nerves. The 20th floor looked different in daylight, less like a museum, more like a machine in motion. People in expensive suits moved through the halls with purpose, talking on phones, carrying tablets, existing in a world Wyatt had only ever glimpsed from the outside. He reported to security first. They gave him a new badge. Wyatt Mercer, Executive Facilities Support. The photo made him look young and overwhelmed, accurate. "Ms. Cross's office is expecting you," the security guard said. "Conference room B." Wyatt's pulse jumped. He followed the directions, found the conference room, knocked on the frosted glass. "Come in." He stepped inside. Vivian Cross sat at the head of a long table, laptop open in front of her, looking exactly as untouchable as she had 2 weeks ago. She wore a charcoal suit that probably cost more than his rent. Her hair was pulled back in a severe bun. Her expression was professionally neutral. "Mr. Mercer, sit down." Wyatt sat. "I've reviewed your work history," Vivian said without preamble. 14 months with this company, 0 disciplinary actions, consistently positive feedback from supervisors, multiple commendations for going above and beyond standard duties. She looked up from her laptop. "You're efficient, discreet, and reliable. Those qualities are valuable." "Thank you, ma'am." "This position reports directly to my office. You'll handle priority maintenance requests from executive leadership, respond to emergencies, and ensure all facilities in the C-suite remain operational. The work requires absolute confidentiality and professional discretion. Her blue eyes pinned him in place. Can you do that? Yes, ma'am. You'll also be on call for after-hours emergencies. I understand you have a daughter. Will that be a problem? Wyatt's throat tightened. No, ma'am. I have childcare arrangements. That was a lie. He had a neighbor who sometimes watched Lily in emergencies, but she charged $30 an hour and complained the whole time. But Wyatt would figure it out. He always did. Good. Vivian closed her laptop. Your first assignment is to conduct a comprehensive safety audit of this floor. I want a full report by Friday, electrical systems, fire suppression, emergency exits, everything. Document every deficiency and provide cost estimates for repairs. Yes, ma'am. That's all. My assistant will provide you with the necessary access codes and documentation. Wyatt stood. He made it halfway to the door before his mouth betrayed him. Miss Cross? She looked up. Thank you for this opportunity. I won't let you down. Something flickered in her expression, too fast to name, too subtle to interpret. See that you don't, Mr. Mercer. The next 3 months were a blur. Wyatt threw himself into the work with the desperation of a man who knew exactly how fragile good fortune could be. He memorized every system on the 20th floor, cataloged every potential failure point, implemented preventive maintenance schedules that caught problems before they became emergencies. He was thorough. He was invisible. He was indispensable. And slowly, carefully, he started to notice things. Vivian Cross worked 18-hour days. She arrived before dawn and left after midnight, her office lights burning like a beacon long after everyone else had gone home. She ate lunch at her desk, always the same thing, some kind of salad delivered from the place across the street. She took calls in 3 languages. She never raised her voice, but people scattered when she walked past like pigeons startled by a hawk. She was brilliant. She was ruthless. She was completely, utterly alone. Wyatt recognized loneliness. He'd been living with it since Rebecca left. He saw it in the way Vivian's shoulders dropped when she thought no one was watching, the way her expression went blank between meetings like someone had flipped a switch. She wore her authority like armor, and the armor never came off. Not at work, anyway. He started getting called to her office directly. Small things at first. A flickering light, a temperamental printer, the espresso machine that kept breaking down. Then bigger things. The climate control system that needed complete recalibration. The security upgrade for her private server room. The custom modifications to her standing desk setup. Mr. Mercer, the air system is malfunctioning again. Mr. Mercer, I need this door lock replaced before tomorrow's board meeting. Mr. Mercer, the backup generator needs testing. I want you personally to oversee it. She never called him Wyatt, always Mr. Mercer, formal and distant. But she requested him specifically, again and again, and Wyatt started to wonder if maybe he wasn't as invisible as he thought. One evening in late October, he was replacing a light fixture in her office when she spoke without looking up from her computer. Your daughter, Lily, how old is she now? Wyatt nearly dropped the screwdriver. She's 6, ma'am, almost 7. And her mother? The question hung in the air like smoke. Wyatt kept his eyes on the wiring, not in the picture. I see. A pause. That must be difficult. We manage. You're raising her alone. Yes, ma'am. Vivian was quiet for a long moment. Then she said, My father raised me alone after my mother died. I was 8. He worked 3 jobs to keep us fed. Her voice was carefully neutral, but something underneath it, something raw. He never complained. Not once. Just did what needed to be done. Wyatt glanced down at her. She was staring at her computer screen, but he didn't think she was seeing it. Sounds like a good man, he said quietly. He was. She blinked, and the moment passed. Finish the fixture and go home, Mr. Mercer. It's late. Yes, ma'am. He gathered his tools and left, but he couldn't shake the conversation. Vivian Cross had shared something personal, something true. It felt like a door cracking open, just an inch, just enough to glimpse what might be on the other side. And Wyatt, against every ounce of self-preservation instinct he possessed, wanted to see more. November brought rain and deadlines. Crosstech was launching a new product in December. some kind of revolutionary AI platform that was supposed to change everything. The pressure cascaded down from Vivian to the executive team to everyone below until the entire 20th floor hummed with barely controlled chaos. Wyatt worked longer hours, fixed things faster, became the person people called when something broke at the worst possible time. He was good at it, better than good. He'd spent his whole life being the person who fixed things, held things together, made broken systems work long enough to survive another day. But he was tired. Bone deep, soul deep tired in a way sleep couldn't fix. One night in mid-November, he was finishing up a repair in the server room when the door opened and Vivian walked in. It was past 11. The building was a ghost town except for the two of them. "Still here, Mr. Mercer?" "Just finishing up, ma'am. Cooling system had a faulty sensor. Should be good now." She nodded, but she didn't leave. Just stood there watching him work, her arms crossed, her expression unreadable. "You're here late most nights," she said finally. "Yes, ma'am." "Why?" Wyatt looked up at her. "Same reason you are, I'd guess. Too much work, not enough hours." "I don't have a choice. This company requires my presence. And Lily requires mine, but she's asleep by 8, so..." He shrugged. "I work. That's not sustainable." "Neither is poverty, ma'am. I picked the option that pays better." Something shifted in her eyes, surprise maybe, or recognition. She stepped closer, and Wyatt became acutely aware of how small the server room was, how the hum of the machines filled the space between them. "You're good at this," Vivian said quietly. "Better than the people who had this job before you. You see systems other people miss. You prevent problems instead of just reacting to them." "Thank you, ma'am." "Stop calling me ma'am. It makes me feel like I'm 80. Wyatt blinked. "What should I call you? Vivian?" "When we're alone," she held his gaze. "We're going to be working closely together through the product launch. I need someone I can trust absolutely. Someone who won't panic, won't gossip, won't fold under pressure." A pause. "Can you be that person?" Wyatt's heart was pounding again, but this time it wasn't fear. It was something else, something dangerous. "Yes," he said. "I can." "Good." Vivian turned toward the door, then stopped. "Go home, Wyatt. Get some sleep. Tomorrow's going to be brutal." She left before he could respond. Wyatt stood alone in the server room, his tools scattered around him, his world tilting on an axis he didn't quite understand. She'd used his first name. She'd asked for his trust. She'd looked at him like he was a person, not just a maintenance worker in a basement. And God help him, he wanted to be that person, the one she trusted, the one she needed, even if it was the worst idea he'd ever had. The product launch was scheduled for December 15th. The entire company mobilized around it like soldiers preparing for battle. Marketing campaigns, media outreach, demo stations, a massive event at the convention center with hundreds of investors, journalists, and industry leaders. Wyatt's job was to make sure nothing broke. Not the presentation tech, not the lighting, not the sound system, not a single goddamn thing. He spent 2 weeks doing site surveys, testing equipment, running redundancies on top of redundancies. He barely slept, barely saw Lily except for rushed breakfasts and hurried bedtime stories. His neighbor complained about the extra childcare hours. Wyatt paid her and promised it would be over soon. Vivian was everywhere. Reviewing presentations, drilling the executive team, making last-minute changes that cascaded into chaos. She ran on coffee and willpower, and Wyatt watched her push herself harder than he'd ever seen anyone push. "You need to sleep," he told her one night when he found her alone in her office at 2 a.m. "I'll sleep when this is over." "You'll collapse before then." She looked up at him with exhausted eyes. "Are you worried about me, Wyatt?" "Yes," he said honestly. "Someone should be." For a moment she just stared at him. Then she said, "Go home. One of us should get some rest." "Not until you do." "That's insubordination." "Fire me then." Vivian's lips twitched, almost a smile, not quite. "Sit down. If you're going to stage a rebellion, you might as well be comfortable." So Wyatt sat. And for the next hour, they worked in silence. Her typing on her laptop, him running diagnostics on his tablet. It was strangely peaceful, like two people existing in the same space without needing to fill it with words. At 3 a.m., Vivian closed her laptop. "All right," she said. "You win. I'll go home." "Thank you." "Don't let it go to your head, Mercer. This is a one-time concession." But she smiled when she said it. A real smile, small and tired and genuine. And Wyatt felt something crack open in his chest. Something that had been frozen for so long he'd forgotten it could thaw. He was in trouble. He was in so much trouble. And he didn't care. And December 15th arrived cold and clear. The convention center was transformed into a technological showcase. Massive screens, sleek demo stations, lighting that could probably be seen from space. 200 people filled the main hall, press badges everywhere, cameras, expectations thick enough to choke on. Wyatt moved through the controlled chaos like a shadow, checking systems, monitoring feeds, ready to fix anything the moment it threatened to break. He wore a headset connected to the tech team, coordinating with a dozen people scattered across the venue. Vivian stood backstage, perfectly composed in a midnight blue suit, her presentation loaded and ready. She caught Wyatt's eye across the crowded space and nodded once. Trust, confirmation, partnership. He nodded back. The lights dimmed, music swelled. The host took the stage and began the introduction, and Wyatt felt every muscle in his body coil tight with readiness. This was it. Everything Vivian had worked for. Everything the company had built toward. And Wyatt was going to make damn sure nothing went wrong. The presentation began flawlessly. Vivian commanded the stage with the same precision she commanded her boardroom. Clear, confident, brilliant. The audience was transfixed. The demo went perfectly. The applause was thunderous. Wyatt started to breathe again. And then he saw it. Movement above the stage. In the rigging where the massive light panels hung suspended, someone was up there. Someone who shouldn't be. Wyatt's blood went ice cold. He grabbed his radio. "Security, we have an unauthorized person in the stage rigging. Repeat, unauthorized." The figure moved fast. Wyatt saw metal glint, saw hands working on something, saw the massive stage light start to tilt directly over Vivian's head. Wyatt didn't think, didn't hesitate, didn't calculate the consequences. He just ran, sprinted across the venue floor, vaulted the barrier, hit the stage at a dead run while 200 people stared and Vivian turned toward him with confusion. And the light fell and Wyatt slammed into her, wrapped his arms around her waist, threw them both sideways off the center mark. The light hit the stage exactly where she'd been standing. 1,200 pounds of metal and glass and shattered dreams exploding in a cascade of sparks and screams. Wyatt landed hard, Vivian in his arms, both of them rolling across the stage floor. He'd knocked the wind out of her. She was gasping. His shoulder burned where it had hit the ground. But she was alive. They were both alive. And the entire world was watching. Security swarmed the stage. The cameras kept rolling. Someone was shouting into a microphone about evacuating calmly. "Please remain calm." Wyatt pulled himself up, helped Vivian to her feet. She was shaking. Whether from adrenaline or shock, he couldn't tell. "Are you hurt?" he asked. No, I'm..." She looked at him, and her eyes were wide and terrified and human in a way he'd never seen. "You saved my life." "I saw someone. In the rigging. They were tampering with the light." Her expression shifted, went from shock to something cold and calculating. "Where are they now?" "Security's searching. I called it in before you threw yourself in front of a falling light." Her voice was shaking now. "You could have been killed." "So could you." Vivian stared at him for one more heartbeat. Then she turned to face the chaos, squared her shoulders, and became the CEO again, calm, controlled, in command. But her hand found his in the confusion and squeezed once, hard. And Wyatt knew, with absolute certainty, that everything had just changed. The convention center had transformed into a crime scene in under 10 minutes. Yellow tape cordoned off the stage area where fragments of shattered glass still glittered under emergency lighting. Police moved through the crowd, taking statements while security personnel reviewed camera footage on tablets, their faces grim. The 200 guests who'd come to witness innovation had instead witnessed attempted murder, and the whispers rippled through the space like wildfire. Wyatt sat on the edge of the equipment case backstage, an EMT pressing an ice pack against his shoulder while another checked Vivian for injuries 20 feet away. She kept waving them off, insisting she was fine, but they were persistent. Protocol, they said. Liability, they meant. Detective Sarah Chen approached with a notepad, her expression professionally neutral. Mid-40s, sharp eyes, the kind of cop who'd seen enough to rarely be surprised. Mr. Mercer, I need to ask you some questions about what you saw. Of course. Wyatt winced as the EMT prodded a particularly tender spot. Walk me through it from the beginning. So he did. The movement in the rigging, the glint of metal, the sickening realization that the light was coming down and Vivian was directly underneath. His sprint across the venue floor, the impact, the explosion of glass and sparks. Detective Chen wrote it all down in neat, efficient script. And you're certain you saw someone up in the rigging, not just equipment malfunction? I'm certain. Someone was working on the mounting bracket. I saw their hands. Can you describe them? Wyatt closed his eyes, tried to pull the memory into focus. Dark clothing. Gloves, I think. They moved fast, like they knew exactly what they were doing. I couldn't see their face, too far away. Bad angle. He opened his eyes. But it wasn't an accident, Detective. Someone deliberately sabotaged that light. We're operating under that assumption. Chen flipped to a new page. How long have you worked for Cross Tech? About 15 months total. 3 months in this position. And your relationship with Ms. Cross? Something in the question made Wyatt's spine straighten. I'm executive facilities support. I handle maintenance and repairs for the C-suite. That's your professional relationship. I'm asking about your personal one. We don't have a personal relationship. She's my boss. I do my job. Detective Chen's eyes sharpened. You just threw yourself in front of a falling light to save her life. That suggests a certain level of investment. Wyatt felt heat creep up his neck. I saw someone in danger. I reacted. That's not investment, Detective. That's just basic human decency. She made another note. Anyone who might want to harm Ms. Cross? Threats she's mentioned? Disgruntled employees? Business rivals? You'd have to ask her that. I just fix things when they break. Right. Chen tucked her notepad away. We'll need you to come down to the station tomorrow to give a formal statement. And Mr. Mercer, if you remember anything else about the person in the rigging, any detail, no matter how small, call me immediately. She handed him a business card. Wyatt pocketed it just as Vivian broke away from the EMTs and crossed to where he sat. She'd lost the composure she'd worn like armor earlier. Her hair had come loose from its severe bun. There was a scrape on her cheek from where they'd hit the stage floor. She looked rattled in a way that made Wyatt's chest ache. Detective Chen, Vivian said, has security found anything? They're still reviewing footage. Whoever was in that rigging knew how to avoid the cameras. We've got blind spots all through the overhead access points, but we'll find them. Chen's expression softened fractionally. Ms. Cross, I strongly suggest you accept police protection until we determine the scope of this threat. Absolutely not. I won't let some coward with a wrench dictate how I live my life. Ma'am, I have private security. They're more than capable. Detective Chen looked like she wanted to argue, but Vivian's tone made it clear the discussion was over. We'll be in touch. Both of you. Stay available. She left, and suddenly the backstage area felt smaller. Wyatt stood up, testing his shoulder. Sore, but functional. He'd have a hell of a bruise tomorrow. You should go home, Vivian said quietly. So should you. I have to speak with the board. Damage control. The press is already running stories about sabotage and corporate espionage. She rubbed her temples. This launch was supposed to establish us as the industry leader. Instead, we're the company that can't keep its CEO alive long enough to finish a presentation. You are alive. That's what matters. Vivian looked at him then, really looked at him, and something cracked in her carefully controlled expression. You could have died. That light weighed over half a ton. If your timing had been off by even a second, it wasn't. You didn't hesitate. You didn't think. You just ran. Her voice was shaking again, and she seemed furious about it. Why? Because I care about you, Wyatt thought. Because somewhere in the last 3 months, I stopped seeing you as just my boss and started seeing you as a person I can't imagine losing. Because When I saw that light falling, I didn't think about my job or my daughter or anything except getting to you before it was too late. But he couldn't say any of that. So instead he said, someone had to. Vivian's jaw tightened. For a moment, Wyatt thought she might actually cry, which seemed impossible. Vivian Cross didn't cry, didn't break, didn't show weakness. But her eyes were bright with unshed tears, and her hands were clenched into fists at her sides. Thank you, she whispered. I don't have the words for what you did, but thank you. Before Wyatt could respond, a man in an expensive suit approached, tablet in hand, expression harried. Ms. Cross, the board is waiting, and we have 17 media requests for statements. PR wants to coordinate. Give me 5 minutes, Marcus. Ma'am, they're insisting. 5 minutes. The steel was back in her voice, absolute and unyielding. Marcus retreated. Vivian turned back to Wyatt. Go home to your daughter. That's an order. And tomorrow, she paused. Tomorrow we figure out who tried to kill me and why. We? You saw them. You're a witness. You're involved whether you like it or not. Her expression was grim. And frankly, right now you're one of about 3 people in this company I trust completely. So yes, we. She walked away before he could argue, her heels clicking sharp against the concrete floor, her shoulders squared against whatever war she was about to walk into with the board. Wyatt watched her go and felt the weight of what she'd just said settle over him like a lead blanket. She trusted him. Out of hundreds of employees, thousands of people who orbited her world, she'd named him as someone she could rely on. And someone had just tried to kill her, which meant that trust might be the most dangerous thing she could give him. But Wyatt had never been good at walking away from dangerous things. Not when someone needed him, not when he could help. So he gathered his tools, headed for the exit, and started making plans for tomorrow. The apartment was dark when he got home. His neighbor, Mrs. Chen, was asleep on the couch, the TV playing some late-night talk show on mute. Wyatt paid her the emergency rate plus an extra 20 for the trouble, thanked her quietly, and locked the door behind her. Lily's bedroom door was cracked open, spilling a wedge of nightlight glow into the hallway. Wyatt pushed it wider and found his daughter curled up under her unicorn comforter, one arm wrapped around the stuffed rabbit she'd had since she was 2. She looked impossibly small, impossibly precious. He sat on the edge of her bed and just watched her breathe for a while, his heart still racing from the adrenaline crash, his shoulder throbbing where he'd hit the stage. He'd almost died tonight. That light could have killed him just as easily as it would have killed Vivian. And then what? Then Lily would have been alone, shuttled into the foster system or shipped off to Rebecca's parents who'd never wanted anything to do with her in the first place. The thought made him feel sick. Daddy? Wyatt startled. Lily's eyes were open, sleepy, and confused. Hey, sunshine, I didn't mean to wake you. You're home late. I know, work stuff, big important event. He smoothed her hair back from her forehead. How was school? Good. We made snowflakes in art class. Mine has 17 points. She yawned. Mrs. Chen let me stay up past bedtime. I heard. That was nice of her. She smells like cigarettes. I know, baby. I'm sorry. Lily studied him with those 2 knowing 6-year-old eyes. You look sad, Daddy. Just tired. He leaned down and kissed her forehead. Go back to sleep, okay? I'll make you pancakes in the morning. With chocolate chips? Don't push your luck, kiddo. She giggled and burrowed back under her covers. Wyatt stayed until her breathing evened out again, until he was sure she was truly asleep. Then he went to his own bedroom, collapsed on the bed fully clothed, and stared at the ceiling. His phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. This is Vivian. Are you all right? Wyatt stared at the message for a long moment, his thumb hovering over the keyboard. How the hell had she gotten his personal number? Then again, she was the CEO. She probably had access to every employee's file. He typed back, Fine. Shoulders sore, but I'll live. You? The response came quickly. Bruised ego more than anything. The board meeting was unpleasant. I'm sorry. Not your fault? Get some rest. Tomorrow at 9 a.m., my office. We need to talk. Yes, ma'am. A pause. Then, Vivian, remember? Wyatt's heart did something complicated in his chest. Yes, Vivian, see you tomorrow. He set the phone down and closed his eyes. Sleep came eventually, restless and full of falling lights and blue eyes, and the ghost of Vivian's hand squeezing his in the chaos. The morning arrived too soon. Wyatt made Lily pancakes as promised, plain, no chocolate chips despite her negotiations, and walked her to the bus stop bundled against the December cold. The Seattle drizzle had turned to actual rain overnight, and the streets were slick with it. "Daddy, your shoulder looks funny," Lily said as they waited. Wyatt glanced down. His shirt didn't quite hide the edge of the bruise spreading down his arm, purple-black and ugly. "I bumped into something at work. It's fine." "Does it hurt?" "A little, but I'm tough, remember?" She smiled up at him, gap-toothed and trusting. "The toughest." The bus arrived. She hugged him goodbye, and Wyatt watched her climb aboard with her purple backpack and her lunchbox and her absolute faith that he'd be there waiting when she got home. That faith terrified him. What if he died last night? What if he'd been wrong about the timing, about the angle, about his ability to reach Vivian before that light came down? But he hadn't been wrong, and he was here. And he'd be here tomorrow too, no matter what came next. He caught the train downtown and arrived at Crosstech headquarters at 8:45, giving himself 15 minutes to prepare for whatever Vivian wanted to discuss. The 20th floor was quieter than usual. Half the staff was probably still processing yesterday's chaos, and the other half was likely fielding media calls. Wyatt went to Vivian's office. Her assistant Marcus looked haggard, dark circles under his eyes, 3 empty coffee cups on his desk. "She's expecting you," Marcus said without looking up from his computer. "Fair warning, she's been here since 5 a.m. and she's in a mood." "Noted, thanks." Wyatt knocked on the frosted glass door. "Come in." Vivian's office looked like a command center. Whiteboards covered in notes, laptops displaying security footage, stacks of printed documents, and Vivian herself standing at the window overlooking Elliott Bay, still wearing yesterday's suit, her hair loose around her shoulders. She turned when he entered. "Close the door. Lock it." Wyatt did. "You didn't go home." "I had work to do." She gestured to the whiteboards. The police found evidence of systematic tampering with multiple light fixtures, not just the one that fell. Whoever did this had access to the venue for at least 2 days before the event. They knew our security protocols. They knew the camera blind spots. Her voice was flat, controlled. This wasn't opportunistic. It was planned. Wyatt studied the security footage frozen on one of the screens. A figure in dark clothing and a cap pulled low, face obscured. Inside job? That's the assumption. Someone with credentials, someone who knew enough about our operations to coordinate this kind of attack. Vivian's jaw tightened. "I have a list of 47 people who had the necessary access and technical knowledge. I'm working through it." 47 suspects. That's a lot of people who might want you dead. "Welcome to my world." She crossed to her desk, pulled out a folder, and handed it to him. "Background checks on everyone in the facilities department. Security flagged 3 people with financial problems severe enough to make them vulnerable to outside influence." Wyatt opened the folder. 3 names, 3 faces. He recognized all of them. Guys he'd worked with, shared coffee breaks with, complained about broken equipment with. The idea that one of them might be a saboteur made his stomach turn. "The police are investigating," Vivian continued, "but they're moving too slowly. Meanwhile, someone is still out there, and I'm still a target." She met his eyes. "I need someone I can trust to help me figure this out from the inside. Someone who knows the systems, knows the people, knows what to look for." "You want me to investigate my own coworkers?" "I want you to help me survive long enough to catch whoever's trying to kill me." Her voice cracked just slightly on the last word. "You saved my life yesterday, Wyatt. I'm asking you to help me keep it." The weight of it pressed down on Wyatt's shoulders, heavier than any light fixture, more crushing than any responsibility he'd ever carried. But when he looked at Vivian's exhausted face, at the fear she was trying so hard to hide, he knew he didn't have a choice. "What do you need me to do?" Relief flickered across her expression. "Start with the 3 flagged employees. Talk to them. See if anything feels off. You're better positioned than anyone to notice behavioral changes or inconsistencies." She paused. "And Wyatt? Be careful. If someone's desperate enough to drop a light on my head, they won't hesitate to hurt anyone who gets in their way. I can handle myself. I know you can. That's why I'm asking. She pulled a key card from her desk drawer. This gives you access to the security server room and the personnel files. Anything you need, anything you find, you bring it directly to me. No one else, not security, not HR, not the police, just me. Wyatt took the card. You really don't trust anyone, do you? I trust you. That's already more than I should. Vivian's expression softened. How's your shoulder? Sore, I'll live. Good. She gestured to the door. Go. Do what you do best. Be invisible, observe everything, and find me answers. Wyatt left her office with the key card burning a hole in his pocket, and the weight of her trust heavy on his conscience. 3 suspects, 47 possibilities, 1 attempted murder and counting. He started with Tom Brennan, a senior facilities tech who'd been with the company for 8 years. Tom was in his mid-40s, divorced, 2 kids in college he was struggling to support. The background check showed mounting credit card debt and a second mortgage on a house that was underwater. Wyatt found him in the mechanical room on the 15th floor, elbow deep in a malfunctioning HVAC unit. Hey, Tom, got a minute? Tom looked up, wiped grease from his hands. Wyatt, hell of a thing yesterday, huh? You okay? Yeah, just bruised. You hear anything about who might have done it? Just rumors. Security's been crawling all over the building, interviewing everyone. Tom's expression was guarded. They talked to you? I was there. I saw someone in the rigging. Jesus, that must have been terrifying. Tom turned back to the HVAC unit. I heard they're saying it was sabotage. Inside job, maybe. That's crazy, right? Who'd want to hurt Ms. Cross? I don't know. You work with a lot of different people. Anyone acting strange lately? Stressed? Angry? Tom's hand stilled. Why are you asking? Just trying to make sense of it. We're all on edge. For a long moment, Tom didn't respond. Then he said quietly, You know what I make here, Wyatt? $48,000 a year. My ex-wife gets half in alimony. My kids' tuition is $70,000 between them. I'm drowning, man. Every day I'm one emergency away from losing everything. He looked at Wyatt. So yeah, I'm stressed, but I didn't try to kill anyone. I wasn't suggesting. Weren't you? Tom's voice hardened. Security already asked me where I was during the setup. I was here fixing this same goddamn unit that's been broken for 3 weeks because we don't have the budget for a replacement. I've got timestamps, witnesses, the works. So if you're looking for a scapegoat, keep looking. He grabbed his tools and left, shoulders tight with anger. Wyatt exhaled slowly. 1 down, 2 to go. The second suspect was Angela Martinez, a 32-year-old electrical specialist with a gambling problem and a boyfriend who'd done time for fraud. Wyatt found her in the parking garage, running diagnostics on the backup generator system. Angela, you got a second? She looked up warily. Depends. You here officially or unofficially? Unofficially, just checking in. Yesterday was intense. That's one word for it. Angela stood, crossed her arms. I heard you tackled Miss Cross, saved her life. I reacted. Anyone would have done the same. Not anyone. Most people would have frozen. She studied him. Security's been asking questions about access, about technical knowledge, about who could have rigged that light. They talked to you yet? Yeah, you. This morning, 2 hours of where were you and who can verify that, like I'm some kind of criminal. Her voice was bitter. I've worked here for 5 years, never missed a day, never screwed up a single job. But because my boyfriend made some mistakes before I even met him, suddenly I'm a suspect. I'm sorry, that's not fair. Nothing's fair, Wyatt. You know that better than anyone. Angela's expression softened slightly. How's your little girl? Lily, right? She's good. Growing up too fast. They do that. Angela gathered her tools. Look, I don't know who tried to hurt Ms. Cross, but it wasn't me. I need this job. I can't afford to lose it. So whoever's playing detective needs to figure that out before they ruin innocent people's lives. She walked away, leaving Wyatt alone in the echoing garage. The third suspect was Jason Park, a 26-year-old facilities coordinator with a cocaine habit he thought nobody knew about, and a vindictive streak that had gotten him written up twice for workplace conflicts. Wyatt found him in the supply room, organizing inventory with headphones in, moving to music only he could hear. Wyatt tapped his shoulder. Jason jumped, yanked out the earbuds. Christ, Mercer, you trying to give me a heart attack? Sorry, didn't mean to startle you. Yeah, well, everyone's jumpy today. Security's treating this place like a crime scene. Jason's eyes were bloodshot, his hands trembling slightly. You're the hero, right? Saved the Ice Queen from getting crushed. Don't call her that. Why not? That's what everyone calls her. Cold as hell, impossible to please, fires people for breathing wrong. Jason's lip curled. Though I guess she's nice to you, huh? Gave you that cushy executive support gig. What did you do to earn that, Mercer? Wyatt's hands clenched. I did my job. That's all. Right. Just doing your job. Jason leaned against the shelf, smirking. Must be nice, being the favorite. Rest of us are disposable, but you're special. Jason, are you okay? You seem... I'm fine. Never better. But his eyes said otherwise, paranoid, defensive, wound too tight. Why are you asking? Security send you to interrogate me? No, I'm just... Save it. I know how this works. Someone screws up. Everyone looks for the junkie to blame. Well, I wasn't anywhere near that convention center. I was here doing overtime, which you can verify with the time logs. So you can tell whoever sent you that I'm clean. He shoved past Wyatt and disappeared into the hallway. Wyatt stood alone among the shelves of supplies, his instincts screaming that something was wrong with Jason, but unable to pin down exactly what. Defensive didn't mean guilty. Paranoid didn't mean murderer. But it didn't mean innocent either. He spent the rest of the day quietly observing, checking access logs, reviewing security footage from the days leading up to the launch. By 6 p.m., his eyes burned from staring at screens and his shoulder throbbed from the bruise spreading down his arm. His phone buzzed. Vivian. My office. Now. Wyatt headed upstairs. The 20th floor was nearly empty, most people having fled for home hours ago. Vivian's office lights were still on, a beacon in the growing darkness. He knocked. She called him in without looking up from the laptop where security footage played on loop. The same shadowy figure climbing through rigging, always just out of frame, always impossible to identify. Anything? She asked. Wyatt sat down across from her. Tom Brennan is desperate but honest. Angela Martinez is bitter but loyal. Jason Park is paranoid and possibly using, but his alibi checks out. He rubbed his eyes. None of them feel right for this. They're scared, they're angry, but they're not killers. Then we're missing something. Vivian closed the laptop. The police found fingerprints on the tampered light fixture. They're running them through the database now. We should have results by tomorrow. That's good news. Maybe. She stood, moved to the window. The city lights reflected in the glass, making her look like she was standing in two worlds at once. Or maybe whoever did this was smart enough to use gloves, and those prints belonged to a legitimate tech who worked on that fixture weeks ago. Her voice was hollow. I keep running through everyone I know, everyone I've worked with, trying to figure out who hates me enough to want me dead. The list is longer than I'd like to admit. Wyatt joined her at the window. You build empires, you make enemies. That's not personal. That's just business. This feels personal. The timing, the method, the public nature of it. She turned to face him. Someone wanted to humiliate me, destroy my company, and kill me all at once. That's not just business. That's hatred. Then we figure out who hates you that much and we stop them. We? Her eyes searched his face. Wyatt, you don't have to do this. This isn't your fight. You made it my fight when you trusted me. He held her gaze. I'm not walking away. For a long moment they just stood there, 2 feet apart, the city glittering below them and something dangerous building in the space between. Vivian's expression was unreadable, but her eyes, those ice-blue eyes that usually gave nothing away, were full of something that looked like hope mixed with fear. You should go home, she said finally. Your daughter needs you. So do you. I'm fine. You're exhausted. You haven't slept in 2 days, you're running on coffee and adrenaline and stubbornness. Wyatt's voice softened. Please, Vivian, go home. Get some rest. Let me worry about this for a few hours. You can't protect me from my own thoughts. Maybe not, but I can make sure you don't collapse from exhaustion before we catch whoever's doing this. She smiled then, sad and small, but real. You're very stubborn, you know that? I learned from the best. Vivian's phone buzzed. She checked it, and her expression went cold. Detective Chen, they have results from the fingerprints. She answered on speaker. Ms. Cross, we've identified the prints from the light fixture. They belong to Derek Hale. Wyatt's blood went cold. Derek Hale, the CTO, Vivian's right hand, her trusted advisor, the man who'd been with the company since the beginning. Vivian's face went blank with shock. That's impossible. Derek wouldn't... We're bringing him in for questioning now. I wanted to inform you before you saw it on the news. The call ended. Vivian stood frozen, the phone still in her hand, her expression somewhere between devastation and rage. Vivian, he was my friend. Her voice broke on the last word. I trusted him. I brought him into this company. I gave him everything. We don't know for sure it was him. Fingerprints just mean he touched the fixture at some point. That's not proof of... It's proof enough. She set the phone down with trembling hands. Derek's been acting strange for weeks, distracted, defensive when I asked about certain projects. I thought he was stressed about the launch. A bitter laugh. Turns out he was planning my murder. Wyatt moved closer. We'll figure this out. We'll get answers. I don't want answers. I want to know why. Why would someone I trusted, someone I considered family, try to kill me? Before Wyatt could respond, an alarm shrieked through the building. The lights flickered, and Vivian's phone lit up with an emergency alert. Security breach, executive floor, lockdown initiated. They were no longer alone, and whoever had come for Vivian wasn't finished yet. The alarm cut through the office like a knife, its shrill pitch making Wyatt's teeth ache. Red emergency lights strobed across the walls, turning Vivian's office into something out of a nightmare. Through the frosted glass door, shadows moved in the hallway. Security personnel running, voices shouting commands that were swallowed by the alarm's relentless scream. Vivian was already moving, pulling her phone out again, her fingers flying across the screen. Security breach on this floor. Someone used an executive access card to override the elevator lockdown. Her voice was steady, controlled, but Wyatt could see the fear bleeding through at the edges. That's not possible. All executive cards were deactivated the moment the lockdown initiated. Unless someone had a backup. Wyatt crossed to the door, pressed his ear against it. Footsteps, getting closer. Do you have another way out of here? Private elevator, through there. She pointed to what looked like a wall panel beside her bookshelf. It goes directly to the parking garage. But we need to... The lights went out completely. Not just the emergency strobes, but everything. The computers, the building systems, even the glow from the city outside seemed to dim, as if someone had thrown a blanket over Seattle itself. The backup generators should have kicked in within seconds, but there was only darkness, and that screaming alarm and the sound of Wyatt's heart hammering against his ribs. Someone killed the power, Vivian whispered. The whole building. Wyatt grabbed her hand. The elevator, now. They moved through the darkness, Wyatt using his phone's flashlight to navigate. Vivian's fingers were ice cold in his, trembling slightly despite the iron control in her voice. She reached the wall panel, pressed something Wyatt couldn't see, and it slid open to reveal a small private elevator. They stepped inside just as the office door behind them crashed open. Miss Cross? A man's voice, familiar but wrong somehow, too calm, too controlled. I know you're in there. Derek Hale. Vivian jabbed the button for the parking garage, but nothing happened. The elevator didn't move. She pressed it again, harder, her breath coming faster. Override, she hissed. He's locked down the private elevator too. The footsteps were getting closer. Wyatt could see a flashlight beam sweeping across the office, systematic and patient. Derek wasn't rushing. He knew they were trapped. There's a maintenance access hatch, Wyatt said quietly, pointing up at the elevator ceiling. If I can get us into the shaft, we can climb down. That's 20 floors. You have a better idea? Vivian looked at him for one heartbeat, her eyes reflecting the phone's light like ice catching fire. Then she nodded. Do it. Wyatt boosted her up first, his injured shoulder screaming in protest. Vivian was stronger than she looked. She pulled herself through the hatch with the efficiency of someone who'd learned not to rely on anyone else. Then she reached down, grabbed Wyatt's hand, and helped haul him up. For a moment they were pressed together in the tight space, both breathing hard, and Wyatt was acutely aware of how close they were, how much danger they were in, how absolutely insane this situation had become. "The ladder's here," Vivian said, already moving. "Emergency access. It should take us down to—" A gunshot exploded through the elevator shaft. The bullet pinged off metal somewhere below them, the sound amplified and terrifying in the enclosed space. Wyatt's blood turned to ice. "He has a gun," Vivian breathed. "Derek has a gun." Another shot, this one closer. Derek had found the hatch, was climbing up after them. "Move," Wyatt urged. "Fast as you can. Don't look down." They climbed. Vivian went first, her hands finding the rungs with practiced precision, like she'd done this before, like she'd planned for every contingency, including being hunted through her own building by a man she'd trusted. Wyatt followed, trying to ignore the way his shoulder burned, the way his hands were slick with sweat, the way the darkness below them seemed to have teeth. "I gave you everything," Derek's voice echoed up the shaft, distorted and strange. "I helped you build this company. I stood by you when everyone said you were too young, too inexperienced, too much of a risk. And how did you repay me? By sidelining me. By bringing in outside consultants. By treating me like I was expendable." "Derek, please," Vivian called down, still climbing. "Whatever you think I did, we can fix this. We can talk." "We're past talking." Another shot. Wyatt felt the bullet pass close enough to stir the air beside his head. "You humiliated me in front of the board, cut my profit share, questioned my judgment. You made me look weak." They reached the 19th floor access door. Wyatt yanked it open, and they tumbled through into another darkened hallway. The alarm was still shrieking, and somewhere in the building people were shouting, but it all felt distant, unreal. Wyatt slammed the shaft door closed and looked around frantically for something to block it with. "This way." Vivian grabbed his hand again and pulled him down the corridor. She knew this building intimately, could navigate it blind. They ran past darkened offices, past conference rooms with their doors hanging open like mouths, past all the trappings of corporate success that meant nothing when someone wanted you dead. Behind them, the shaft door burst open. Derek was through, was hunting them floor by floor, and he wasn't going to stop until one of them was dead. Vivian pulled Wyatt into a server room, locked the door behind them. The space was cramped and hot, filled with the hum of machines that were running on battery backup. Red and green lights blinked like malevolent eyes. "We can't run forever," Wyatt said, his chest heaving. "He knows this building as well as you do." "Better, maybe. He designed half the security systems." Vivian was pulling up something on her phone, her fingers shaking. "I'm trying to reach security, but the cell network is jammed. He must have a blocker." "What about the police? Detective Chen?" "Same problem. We're on our own." She looked up at him, and in the dim glow of the server lights, she looked younger, more vulnerable than he'd ever seen her. "Wyatt, I need you to listen to me. There's a fire exit at the end of this hall. If you can get to it, you can get out. Get somewhere safe. Call for help. I'm not leaving you. This isn't your fight. Derek wants me, not you. If you stay, you'll die." "Then I'll die." Wyatt moved closer, his voice fierce. "I didn't save your life yesterday just to abandon you today. We get out together, or we don't get out at all." Vivian stared at him, and something cracked in her expression. The armor she wore, the Ice Queen persona, all of it falling away to reveal the terrified woman underneath. "Why? Why would you risk your life for me? I'm just your boss. You barely know me." "I know enough." Wyatt's hand found hers in the darkness. "I know you work 18-hour days because you think if you slow down, you'll lose everything. I know you eat the same salad for lunch every day because making decisions is exhausting and you need to save your energy for the things that matter. I know you raised yourself after your father died and you built an empire from nothing because you refused to be invisible." His voice softened. "And I know that when you look at me, you don't see a maintenance worker or a single dad struggling to survive. You see someone worth trusting, worth saving. And nobody's looked at me like that since my daughter was born." Vivian's eyes were bright with unshed tears. "Wyatt!" The door exploded inward. Derek stood in the doorway, silhouetted by the emergency lights, a gun held steady in his right hand. He looked like a stranger. All the warmth Wyatt had seen in company photos was gone, replaced by something cold and desperate. "Step away from her, Mercer." Derek's voice was conversational, almost friendly. "This has nothing to do with you. You're collateral damage. I don't want to kill you, but I will, if you make me." Wyatt stepped in front of Vivian. "Not happening." "Noble. Stupid, but noble." Derek's expression twisted. "You really think she cares about you? You're a tool to her, a useful asset. The moment you stop being useful, she'll discard you like she discarded me." "That's not true," Vivian said from behind Wyatt. "Derek, I never discarded you. You were making decisions that put the company at risk. I had to intervene." "You humiliated me." Derek's hand tightened on the gun. "Do you know what that feels like? To give everything to someone, to believe in them, to sacrifice for them, and then be told you're not good enough, that you're making mistakes, that you need to be managed? I was trying to help you. The board was calling for your resignation. I protected you. By cutting my authority, by questioning every decision I made, by bringing in outsiders to audit my work." Derek laughed, sharp and bitter. "You want to know the truth, Vivian? I've been bleeding money for 2 years. Bad investments, worse gambling debts. I needed that profit share to survive, and you took it away. So when someone approached me with an offer, cash in exchange for making you disappear, I took it." The words hung in the air like poison. Vivian went very still behind Wyatt. "Someone hired you?" Her voice was barely a whisper. "This wasn't personal?" "Oh, it's personal, but it's also business." Derek raised the gun. "They wanted you dead, and I needed the money. Win-win. Except you had to survive the light fixture, and now I have to do this the messy way." "Who hired you?" Wyatt demanded. "Who wants her dead?" "Does it matter? They'll find someone else if I fail. Vivian has a lot of enemies. Comes with being successful." Derek's finger moved to the trigger. "Last chance, Mercer. Step aside." Wyatt didn't move. His mind was racing, calculating angles and distances and chances. The server room was small, cramped. If Derek fired, the bullet would hit Wyatt first. That gave Vivian maybe 3 seconds to run. Not enough, but it was something. "I'm sorry, Lily," he thought. "I'm so sorry." Behind him, Vivian's hand found his back, pressed against his spine. Not pushing him aside, just touching him, grounding herself, showing him she was there. "Together," she breathed. "Whatever happens." Derek's expression hardened. "Your funeral." The gun came up. Wyatt tensed, ready to throw himself at Derek, to buy Vivian every second he could. And then the lights came back on. Not the emergency strobes, the full building lights, bright and sudden and blinding. Derek flinched, his hand coming up to shield his eyes, and in that half second of distraction, Wyatt moved. He lunged forward, grabbed Derek's wrist, slammed it against the doorframe. The gun went off, the bullet punching into the ceiling and raining down plaster. They crashed into the hallway in a tangle of limbs, both of them fighting for control of the weapon. Derek was older but desperate, and desperation made him strong. He got his knee up, drove it into Wyatt's injured shoulder. Pain exploded white-hot and blinding. Wyatt's grip loosened. Derek wrenched free, raised the gun again. Wyatt saw his life flash before his eyes, Lily's face, Vivian's eyes, all the moments he'd never have. And then Vivian was there, swinging something heavy and metal. A server rack panel she'd ripped free, and it connected with Derek's skull with a sickening crunch. Derek went down hard. The gun skittered across the floor. And suddenly security was there, pouring out of the elevators that had just come back online, shouting and pointing weapons and taking control of a situation that had spun so far out of control it felt like a different universe. Wyatt lay on the floor, his shoulder screaming, his whole body shaking with adrenaline. Vivian dropped to her knees beside him, her hands on his face, her eyes wild. "Are you okay? Wyatt, are you hurt?" "I'm fine. I'm okay." He caught her hands, held them. "You saved me." "You saved me first." Her voice broke. "You keep saving me." "Someone has to." Security hauled Derek to his feet. He was conscious but dazed, blood streaming from a cut on his temple. His eyes found Vivian's across the chaos, and for just a moment, Wyatt saw something like regret flash across his face. "I'm sorry," Derek said. For what it's worth, I'm sorry. Vivian's expression was stone. Tell it to the police. They took Derek away in handcuffs. Detective Chen arrived 10 minutes later, her face grim, flanked by a dozen officers who turned the 20th floor into an active crime scene. Wyatt gave his statement sitting on the floor with his back against the wall, too exhausted to stand. Vivian sat beside him, close enough that their shoulders touched, her presence the only thing keeping him tethered to reality. He said someone hired him, Vivian told Detective Chen. Someone wanted me dead. Derek was just the weapon. We'll get him to talk. Find out who's behind this. Chen crouched down to their eye level. But you two need medical attention. You're both in shock and Mr. Mercer's shoulder looks dislocated. It's fine, Wyatt said automatically. It's not fine. You're going to the hospital. Both of you. That's not negotiable. The EMTs arrived and tried to separate them. Wyatt found himself being led toward a stretcher while Vivian was pulled in a different direction, and panic rose in his throat like bile. They'd just survived being hunted through a building by a man with a gun. They'd just watched someone they knew, someone Vivian had trusted, try to kill them both. And now strangers were trying to separate them, to put distance between them, and Wyatt couldn't handle it. "Vivian," he called out. She turned, her eyes finding his across the chaos, and then she pulled away from the EMT holding her arm and crossed back to him, her hand finding his like it belonged there. "Together," she said firmly. "We go together." The EMTs exchanged glances but didn't argue. They loaded Wyatt onto a stretcher with Vivian walking beside him, her hand never leaving his. In the ambulance, she sat across from him while a paramedic worked on his shoulder, relocating it with a sharp pull that made Wyatt's vision go white for a moment. When the pain receded, Vivian was still there, still watching him with those ice-blue eyes that weren't ice anymore. They were warm, concerned, human. "Your daughter," she said suddenly. "Lily. She's going to be home soon. You need to call someone." Wyatt checked his watch. 6:40. The bus would drop Lily off in 5 minutes, and he wasn't there. Panic seized him. "My neighbor, Mrs. Chen, she has a spare key." "Give me her number. I'll handle it." "Vivian, you don't have to give me the number, Wyatt." He did. Vivian stepped away, made the call, spoke in low tones Wyatt couldn't hear. When she came back, her expression was softer. "Mrs. Chen will pick her up from the bus stop and stay with her until we get there. I'm paying her double her usual rate and covering dinner." She sat down again. "Your daughter is safe. Now let them take care of you." Wyatt wanted to argue, but he was so tired. Tired of fighting, tired of being afraid, tired of carrying everything alone. So he just nodded and let the paramedics do their work while Vivian sat across from him, her presence a steady anchor in a world that had gone sideways. The hospital was chaos, police everywhere, reporters trying to get statements, security keeping everyone at bay. They put Wyatt and Vivian in adjoining rooms in the ER, separated by a thin curtain that did nothing to block sound. Wyatt could hear Vivian talking to Detective Chen, her voice steady and professional even as she recounted every terrifying moment of being hunted through her own building. "Derek confessed to the convention center sabotage," Chen was saying, "but he's not talking about who hired him. Says he'll only speak to his lawyer." "Then find his financials, follow the money." Vivian's voice was steel. "Someone paid him to kill me. I want to know who." "We're on it. But Ms. Cross, you need to understand, whoever's behind this, they're organized. They had the resources to hire your CTO, to plan a sophisticated attack, to jam your communications and kill your building's power. This is an amateur hour." "I know." A pause. "What do I do?" "You go somewhere safe. You let us do our job, and you pray we find them before they send someone else." Wyatt heard footsteps, the curtain being pulled back. A doctor appeared, middle-aged and competent-looking. "Mr. Mercer? Your shoulder's going to be sore for a few weeks, but the relocation went well. We're prescribing pain medication and recommending rest." She handed him a clipboard. "Sign here for discharge." Wyatt signed. "Can I see Miss Cross?" "She's being discharged too. You can wait for her in the lobby." But Wyatt didn't want to wait in the lobby. He wanted to see her now, to confirm she was real and whole and alive. So he pushed through the curtain into her examination area and found her sitting on the edge of a hospital bed, still in her wrinkled suit from yesterday, looking exhausted and beautiful, and more vulnerable than he'd ever seen her. She looked up when he entered. "You're supposed to be resting." "So are you." A small smile. "We're both terrible at following orders." Wyatt sat down beside her on the narrow bed. Their shoulders touched, and neither of them moved away. For a long moment, they just sat there, two people who'd survived something impossible together, connected by trauma and trust, and something deeper neither of them wanted to name. "He was my friend," Vivian said quietly. "Derek, I thought I knew him. I thought I could trust him. He made his choices. That's not on you. I should have seen it. The financial problems, the stress, the desperation. I was so focused on the company that I missed what was happening right in front of me." "You can't save everyone, Vivian. Sometimes people don't want to be saved." She turned to look at him. "Is that what you think you're doing? Saving me?" "I think I'm trying to keep someone I care about alive." The words hung between them, honest and terrifying. Vivian's breath caught. "You care about me?" "Yes." "Why?" "I'm difficult. I'm demanding. I work too much and trust too little, and I've spent my whole life pushing people away because it's safer than letting them close." Wyatt reached up, tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. His hand was shaking. "Maybe I like difficult. Maybe I understand working too much and trusting too little. Maybe I spent so long being invisible that being seen by you feels like coming back to life." Vivian's eyes were wet. "You almost died tonight. Because of me. Because I asked you to help me and you were stupid enough to say yes. I'd say yes again, every time." "Why?" "Because someone has to. Because you deserve to have someone fight for you the way you fight for everyone else. Because when I look at you, I don't see a CEO or a billionaire or an ice queen. I see someone who's terrified of being alone, and I know exactly how that feels." A tear slid down Vivian's cheek. "I am terrified. Of this, of you, of what happens if I let myself feel something real and it gets taken away." "Then we're terrified together." Wyatt's thumb brushed away the tear. "But we're also alive together. And right now, that's enough." Vivian leaned forward, and for one breathless moment, Wyatt thought she might kiss him. But instead she rested her forehead against his, her breath warm on his skin, and whispered, "Thank you. For staying. For fighting. For not running when any sane person would have." "I'm not known for my sanity." She laughed, soft and broken and real. And then they just sat there, foreheads touching, hands clasped. Two people who'd stared down death and chosen each other anyway. Detective Chen found them like that 10 minutes later. She cleared her throat, and they pulled apart like teenagers caught by a parent. "Sorry to interrupt, but we've got developments. Derek's lawyer showed up, and suddenly he's very cooperative. Gave us names, account numbers, the whole operation." Chen's expression was grim. "The person who hired him? It's bigger than we thought. International players, corporate espionage, industrial sabotage. This wasn't just about killing you, Ms. Cross. It was about destroying your company and selling the pieces to your competitors." Vivian went very still. "Who?" "TechCore Industries. Your biggest rival. They've been trying to acquire your AI patents for years. And when you wouldn't sell, they decided to force the issue. Derek was their inside man. The plan was to kill you, tank the stock price, and buy up the company in the chaos." "That's insane," Wyatt said. "That's not business, that's murder." "It's both. And we're building a case that will bury everyone involved." Chen looked at Vivian. "But it's going to take time. Weeks, maybe months. Until then, you're still a target. TechCore invested millions into this operation. They're not going to walk away just because Derek got caught." "Then what do I do?" Vivian's voice was steady, but Wyatt could feel her trembling beside him. "You disappear for a while. Somewhere they can't find you. Let us work the case, gather evidence, make arrests. Once we've dismantled their operation, you can come back." "I can't just abandon my company. You can't run it if you're dead." Chen's voice was blunt. "This isn't a suggestion, Ms. Cross. This is me telling you that your life is in immediate danger and you need to take it seriously." Vivian looked at Wyatt, and he saw the war happening behind her eyes. Duty versus survival, pride versus pragmatism. Finally, she nodded. "All right. I'll go. Good. We'll arrange safe transport and a secure location. Chen stood to leave, then paused. Mr. Mercer, you should consider protective custody too. They know you helped her. They might come after you as leverage. Wyatt's stomach dropped. Lily. They could use Lily to get to him, to get to Vivian. The thought made him feel sick. My daughter, he said hoarsely. She can't be part of this. We'll protect her too. All of you, together, until this is over. After Chen left, Vivian took Wyatt's hand again. I'm so sorry. I never meant for you and Lily to get dragged into this. You didn't drag us anywhere. I chose this. He squeezed her fingers. But Vivian, I need to know, when this is over, when the dust settles and the bad guys are in prison and life goes back to normal, what happens to us? She met his eyes, and for the first time since he'd known her, she looked uncertain. I don't know. I've never let anyone get this close before. I don't know how to do this. Neither do I. But maybe we figure it out together. Together, she echoed softly. Then stronger. Together. They left the hospital hand in hand, stepping out into a Seattle night that felt different somehow, sharper, more dangerous, but also more alive. Police cruisers waited to escort them to a safe house where Lily and Mrs. Chen were already being transported. Wyatt's entire life had imploded in less than 48 hours, but as he looked at Vivian, bruised and exhausted and still the strongest person he'd ever met, he realized he wouldn't change a thing. Because for the first time in years, he wasn't invisible. He wasn't alone. And neither was she. Whatever came next, they'd face it the only way they knew how. The safe house was a nondescript ranch in the suburbs east of Seattle, tucked behind Douglas firs and designed to look exactly like every other middle-class home on the block. 2 unmarked police cars sat in the driveway. Armed officers patrolled the perimeter. And inside, sitting at the kitchen table with a coloring book and a juice box, was Lily. She looked up when Wyatt walked through the door, and her face transformed with relief. Daddy! Wyatt crossed the room in 3 strides and scooped her into his arms, his injured shoulder protesting, but he didn't care. She was warm and solid and safe, and for a moment the terror of the last 2 days receded enough that he could breathe again. Hey, Sunshine, you okay? Mrs. Chen said we're having an adventure. Lily pulled back to look at him, her small hands on his face. Why do you have a boo-boo on your shoulder? I fell at work. I'm fine. He kissed her forehead. Are you scared? A little bit. But Mrs. Chen made me mac and cheese, and there's a nice lady officer who let me see her badge. She lowered her voice to a whisper. Daddy, is the pretty lady your friend? Wyatt followed Lily's gaze. Vivian stood in the doorway, still in her wrinkled suit, looking completely out of place in this cookie-cutter suburban kitchen. Her eyes were fixed on Lily with an expression Wyatt couldn't quite read. Wonder, maybe, or longing. Yes, Wyatt said softly. She's my friend. Her name is Vivian. Lily wiggled out of his arms and approached Vivian with the fearless curiosity of 6-year-olds everywhere. You're really pretty. Are you a princess? Vivian's lips twitched. Not quite. I run a company. What kind of company? We make technology, computers and programs that help people do things. Like my tablet? Something like that. Lily studied her for a long moment. Then she said, My daddy saved your life. He's a hero. Vivian's eyes met Wyatt's across the kitchen. Yes, he is. Are you going to marry him? Lily! Wyatt felt heat flood his face. That's not... You can't just... It's a reasonable question, Vivian said, and there was amusement in her voice now. She crouched down to Lily's eye level. Your daddy is very brave and very kind, but we're just friends right now, okay? Okay. Lily seemed satisfied with that answer. Do you want to color with me? I'm making a unicorn. I would love to color with you. And just like that, Vivian Cross, billionaire CEO, target of an international conspiracy, the woman who commanded boardrooms and intimidated industry titans, sat down at a suburban kitchen table with a 6-year-old and a box of crayons. Wyatt watched her carefully select a purple crayon and begin shading in a unicorn's mane with the same focused precision she brought to running her company, and something in his chest cracked wide open. This was real. This moment, this strange domestic tableau in the middle of a nightmare, This was the most real thing he'd felt in years. Mrs. Chen appeared from the living room, her coat already on. "Mr. Mercer, I should get going. The officers said they'd drive me home." "Thank you for taking care of her. I know this wasn't what you signed up for." "That girl is special. You're doing a good job with her." Mrs. Chen glanced at Vivian, then back at Wyatt. "Don't mess this up. Good women are hard to find." She left before Wyatt could respond. One of the officers, a woman in her 30s with kind eyes, approached him. "Mr. Mercer, I'm Officer Sarah Reeves. I'll be on the night shift tonight. Detective Chen wanted me to brief you on security protocols." They moved to the living room, leaving Lily and Vivian at the table. Officer Reeves laid out the rules. No going outside, no phone calls except on the secure line, no social media, no contact with anyone who might compromise their location. Police presence 24/7, rotating shifts. Everything designed to keep them invisible until the investigation wrapped up. "How long?" Wyatt asked. Detective Chen estimates 2 to 3 weeks if everything goes smoothly. TechCore's operation is big, but Derek's cooperation is giving us leverage. We're making arrests now, 4 executives in custody, more coming. Once we've dismantled the network, you'll be safe. And if it doesn't go smoothly, Reeves' expression was carefully neutral. Then we adjust. But Mr. Mercer, I need you to understand something. The people who want Ms. Cross dead, they have resources, money, connections, people willing to do very bad things for the right price. We're good at our job, but we can't protect you if you don't follow the rules." "I understand." "Good." She handed him a phone. "This is a secure line. Only use it for emergencies. Detective Chen and I are on speed dial." She paused. "Your daughter seems like a sweet kid. We'll keep her safe." After Reeves left, Wyatt returned to the kitchen. Lily had moved on from unicorns to what appeared to be a family portrait. 3 stick figures holding hands, 1 tall, 1 medium, 1 small. The medium figure had long dark hair and a triangular dress. "That's you, Daddy," Lily said, pointing to the tall figure. "And that's me. And that's Vivian." Wyatt's throat tightened. "That's beautiful, sweetheart." "Can we keep it to remember our adventure?" "Of course we can." Vivian was watching the drawing with an expression that made Wyatt's heart ache. She looked like someone who'd been shown something precious and didn't quite know how to hold it without breaking it. Bedtime came too soon. Lily protested. She wanted to stay up, wanted to keep coloring with Vivian, wanted to watch a movie. But Wyatt was firm, and eventually she relented. He carried her to the bedroom the officers had designated as theirs, tucked her under the blankets, and read her favorite story about a girl who built a rocket ship to the moon. "Daddy," Lily said when he closed the book, "is Vivian going to stay with us?" "For a little while, yeah. Is that okay?" "I like her. She's nice. And she looks at you like you're special." "Like I'm special?" "Yeah. Like you're the most important person in the whole world." Lily yawned. "That's how I look at you, too." Wyatt kissed her forehead, his eyes burning. "I love you, sunshine. More than anything." "Love you too, Daddy." He stayed until she fell asleep, watching her chest rise and fall with the easy rhythm of childhood innocence. Then he slipped out and found Vivian in the living room, staring out the window at the dark suburban street. "She's asleep," he said quietly. Vivian nodded without turning around. "She's wonderful, Wyatt. You've done an incredible job with her." "I've done my best. Some days that feels like enough. Other days," he shrugged, "I don't know, being a single parent is the hardest thing I've ever done." "But you do it anyway. You show up every day, make her breakfast, braid her hair, read her stories. You make her feel safe." Vivian's voice was soft. "My father did that for me. After my mother died, he could have fallen apart, but he didn't. He got up every morning and made sure I knew I was loved." Wyatt moved to stand beside her. "He sounds like a good man." He was. He died when I was 22. Heart attack, sudden and brutal. One day he was there, and the next, she trailed off. I built this company in his memory. Everything I've achieved, it's because he taught me that hard work and integrity matter more than anything, that you don't give up, even when it's easier to quit, that you fight for what's right, even when you're terrified. He'd be proud of you. I hope so. Vivian finally turned to look at him. Wyatt, I need to tell you something. About tonight, about Derek, about all of this. Okay? When I saw that gun pointed at you, when I realized Derek was going to shoot you because you wouldn't step aside, her voice cracked. I've never been that scared in my life. Not when the light fell, not when we were running through the building, not even when Derek had me cornered. But watching him aim at you, knowing you were there because of me, because I asked you to help. Vivian, let me finish. She took a shaky breath. I've spent my entire adult life avoiding connections, not getting close to people, not letting anyone matter too much because mattering means vulnerability, and vulnerability means pain. But you, she reached up, touched his face with trembling fingers. You broke through every wall I built, and I don't know what to do with that. Wyatt covered her hand with his. You don't have to do anything. We can just be. Right here, right now. Two people who survived something terrible together. But what about tomorrow? What about when this is over and we go back to our normal lives? You're a single father working to make ends meet. I'm a CEO running a billion-dollar company. We exist in completely different worlds. So we build a new world, one that fits both of us. That's not realistic. Maybe not. But neither is falling for your boss while being hunted by corporate assassins. And here we are. Wyatt's thumb brushed across her cheek. I'm not asking for forever, Vivian. I'm just asking for now, for the chance to see where this goes. Vivian searched his eyes, and Wyatt could see the war happening behind her carefully controlled expression. Fear versus hope, caution versus desire. Finally, she leaned forward and pressed her lips to his. The kiss was gentle, tentative, like they were both afraid of breaking something fragile. But it was also electric, charged with all the tension and terror and trust of the past 2 days. Wyatt's hand slid into her hair, and Vivian made a small sound against his mouth. And for a moment the safe house and the armed guards and the conspiracy trying to kill them all fell away. When they finally pulled apart, both breathless, Vivian whispered, "This is insane. Completely. I could lose everything. My company, my reputation, everything I've built. Or you could gain something worth more than all of that." What? Someone who sees you. Not the CEO, not the billionaire, not the ice queen everyone's terrified of. Just you. Vivian. The woman who colors with 6-year-olds and works too hard and is brave enough to let herself be afraid. Tears spilled down her cheeks. I don't know how to do this. How to be vulnerable. How to let someone in. Then we learned together. Wyatt pulled her close, and she came willingly, tucking herself against his chest like she belonged there. One day at a time, one moment at a time, until it feels less scary. They stood like that for a long time, wrapped in each other, finding comfort in closeness. Outside, the police cars patrolled and the officers watched, and the night pressed dark against the windows. But inside, in this moment, they were safe. The next morning brought news. Detective Chen called on the secure line, her voice tight with controlled urgency. We've made significant progress. 8 TechCore executives in custody, including their CEO, but there's a problem. Wyatt put the phone on speaker so Vivian could hear. What kind of problem? Derek's lawyer is negotiating. They want immunity in exchange for testimony against TechCore's leadership. The DA is considering it. Vivian's expression went cold. Derek tried to kill me. Twice. And now he might walk free? Not free. Witness protection, reduced sentence, supervised probation. But yes, he'd avoid serious prison time. Chen sounded unhappy about it. The DA thinks his testimony is crucial to convicting the TechCore executives. Without it, they might all walk. So we trade one monster for another. I know it's not fair, Ms. Cross, but it's the reality of the justice system. Sometimes we have to make deals to get the bigger fish. Vivian closed her eyes. Do it. Get Derek's testimony. Put those TechCore executives away. But I want to be there when he testifies. I want to look him in the eye and make sure he knows exactly what he destroyed. I'll arrange it. But Ms. Cross, what? There's something else. We've been monitoring TechCore's communications, and there's chatter about a contingency plan. If the executives go down, they want to make sure you go down with them. Character assassination, leaked documents, false accusations. They're planning a scorched earth campaign against you and your company. Of course they are. Vivian's voice was bitter. Because it's not enough to try to kill me. They want to destroy everything I built. We're working to intercept their communications, shut down their operation before they can execute. But you need to prepare for fallout. Your PR team should be ready. I don't have a PR team. I have a safe house and armed guards and a company that's probably imploding without me. Vivian rubbed her temples. How long until the trial? Preliminary hearings start in 3 days. Full trial in 2 weeks, maybe less if we fast-track it. But Ms. Cross, I need to be honest with you. Until those TechCore executives are behind bars, you're not safe. They still have people on the outside. They still have resources. One mistake, one security lapse, and I understand. We'll stay here. We'll follow protocol. After the call ended, Vivian sank onto the couch, her composure finally cracking. They're going to destroy me. Even if we win, even if TechCore goes down, the damage to my reputation will be catastrophic. Who's going to trust a CEO who can't protect herself, who nearly got killed by her own CTO? Wyatt sat beside her. People who understand that you were betrayed by someone you trusted, that you survived an assassination attempt, that you fought back. He took her hand. Vivian, you're not a victim. You're a survivor. And that's the story we tell. We? You think I'm going to let you face this alone? Wyatt's voice was fierce. You've got someone in your corner now, someone who's going to fight for you the way you fight for everyone else. But what about your job, your daughter, your life? My life is wherever Lily is safe and happy. And right now that means here, with you. He squeezed her fingers. We're in this together, remember? Whatever comes next. Vivian leaned into him, and Wyatt wrapped his arm around her shoulders. Through the window, he could see Lily playing in the backyard under Officer Reeves's watchful eye, chasing butterflies and laughing like this was all a grand adventure instead of protective custody. She's remarkable, Vivian said softly. So full of joy despite everything she's been through, losing her mother, being raised by a single father who works constantly just to keep them afloat. She should be angry, resentful, but instead she's just happy. Kids are resilient. They adapt. As long as they feel loved, they can survive almost anything. Do you think she'd hate me if she knew the truth? That you're in danger because of me? That we're hiding in this house because someone wants me dead? She drew you into our family portrait. I don't think hate is on the table. Vivian laughed, soft and broken. I've never been part of anyone's family, not since my father died. I don't know how to be. You're already doing it. You colored with her. You answered her questions. You treated her like a person instead of an inconvenience. Wyatt's voice was gentle. That's all family is, Vivian. Showing up, being present, caring about someone else's happiness as much as your own. I care about yours. She looked up at him. Both of you. More than I thought I was capable of caring about anyone. Then that's enough. They spent the next 3 days in a strange sort of limbo. Mornings with Lily, breakfast, cartoons, crafts that Vivian threw herself into with the same intensity she brought to corporate strategy. Afternoons while Lily napped, going over the case files Detective Chen sent, preparing for the trial, strategizing how to minimize damage to Crosstech. Evenings together, the three of them, watching movies or playing board games, or just talking. It was domestic in a way Wyatt had never experienced, not even when Rebecca was still around. This felt real, solid, like something worth protecting. On the third night after Lily was asleep, Vivian found Wyatt in the kitchen. He was making coffee, the cheap stuff the safe house stocked, nothing like the espresso she drank at the office. Couldn't sleep? He asked. Too much on my mind. She accepted the mug he offered. The preliminary hearing is tomorrow. Derek's going to testify. I'm going to have to sit in that courtroom and listen to him explain why he tried to kill me. You don't have to go. You could watch remotely. No, I need to be there. I need him to see what he didn't destroy. Her hands tightened around the mug. Wyatt, what if they don't convict? What if Derek's testimony isn't enough and those executives walk free? Then we deal with it. We adapt. We survive. How can you be so calm about this? Because I've been through worse. Wyatt met her eyes. Rebecca leaving was worse. Trying to explain to Lily why her mother didn't want her was worse. Working 3 jobs and still not making rent was worse. This? He gestured around the safe house. This is scary, but at least we're together. At least I'm not alone. Vivian set down her mug and crossed to him, her hands finding his face. I don't deserve you. You know that, right? You deserve someone simple, someone who doesn't come with assassins and corporate conspiracies and a life so complicated it requires armed guards. I don't want simple. I want you. Why? Because you make me feel like I matter, like I'm more than just a maintenance worker or a struggling single dad. You see potential in me that I didn't know existed. His hand settled on her waist. And because when I'm with you, I'm not invisible anymore. Vivian kissed him then, deeper than before, with the desperation of someone who'd spent too long being alone and was terrified of losing what she'd found. Wyatt responded in kind, pulling her closer, pouring everything he couldn't say into the kiss, fear and hope and want and need, all tangled together. When they finally pulled apart, both breathing hard, Vivian whispered, "Stay with me tonight. I don't want to be alone." "What about Lily?" "She's asleep, and the bedroom door locks." Vivian's eyes were dark with desire and vulnerability. "Please, Wyatt, I need to feel something other than fear." They moved to Vivian's room, closed the door, and for a few hours the world outside ceased to exist. There was only touch and warmth and the whispered promises people make in the dark. Wyatt mapped every scar on Vivian's body, the ones visible and the ones hidden beneath skin, and she did the same for him. They learned each other the way desperate people do, with urgency and tenderness in equal measure. Afterward, Vivian lay with her head on Wyatt's chest, her fingers tracing patterns on his skin. "If we survive this," she said quietly, "if we make it through the trial and the TechCorps executives go to prison and we're finally safe, what happens to us? What do you want to happen?" "I want this. You, me, Lily. I want mornings together and evenings watching movies and someone to come home to who sees me as more than just a CEO." She paused. "But I don't know if that's possible. Our lives are so different." "So we make them less different. You hire people to run the day-to-day operations. I find a job that doesn't require overnight shifts. We build a life that works for both of us." "You make it sound simple." "It's not simple. It's terrifying and complicated and probably insane. But Vivian," he tilted her face up to look at him, "I'm all in. If you want this, if you want us, then I'm all in. Whatever it takes." Tears slid down her cheeks. "I've never let anyone this close before. What if I mess it up? What if I hurt you? Then we'll figure it out. We'll talk. We'll adapt. We'll grow." Wyatt kissed her forehead. "I'm not asking for perfection. I'm just asking for honesty, for you to try." "I can do that." She kissed him softly. "I can try." They fell asleep tangled together, and for the first time since the convention center attack, Wyatt slept without nightmares. The next morning arrived cold and gray. Detective Chen picked them up at 7, drove them to the courthouse through streets still quiet with early morning. Security was everywhere: metal detectors, armed guards, K-9 units sweeping for explosives. The trial had attracted media attention from around the world, and protesters lined the courthouse steps with signs demanding justice. Wyatt held Lily's hand as they navigated the chaos, Officer Reeves running interference to keep reporters at bay. Vivian walked beside him, her armor back in place. Expensive suit, severe bun, expression carved from ice. But when she thought no one was looking, her hand found Wyatt's free one and squeezed. The courtroom was packed. Lawyers, journalists, police, corporate executives who'd come to watch their industry titans fall. Wyatt, Vivian, and Lily sat in the front row behind the prosecution. Across the aisle, Derek sat with his lawyer, wearing an orange jumpsuit and looking 10 years older than he had a week ago. When Derek's eyes found Vivian's, something crumpled in his expression. He opened his mouth like he wanted to say something, but his lawyer put a hand on his arm and he looked away. The judge entered. Everyone stood, and the preliminary hearing began. The prosecution laid out their case with clinical precision: the sabotage, the attempted murder, the international conspiracy. They presented emails, financial records, testimony from TechCore employees who turned state's evidence. The evidence was damning, overwhelming, irrefutable. Then it was Derek's turn. He took the stand with shaking hands, swore to tell the truth, and began to speak. His voice was hollow, defeated. He described how TechCore had approached him months ago, how they'd offered him money to provide inside information, how the arrangement had escalated from corporate espionage to sabotage to murder. How he'd convinced himself it was just business until he was standing in that server room with a gun pointed at people he'd once cared about. "I never wanted to hurt anyone," Derek said, and his voice broke. "I was desperate, drowning in debt, and they offered me a lifeline. I told myself Vivian would be fine, that the company would recover, that it was just about money. But when I saw her face, when I realized I was actually going to kill her," he stopped, overcome. "Continue, Mr. Hale," the prosecutor prompted. Derek wiped his eyes. "I realized I'd become a monster, the kind of person I used to despise, and I knew there was no coming back from that. But you didn't stop." "No, I was in too deep. TechCore had evidence of everything I'd done. If I backed out, they'd destroy me. So I kept going, kept telling myself it would all be worth it." He looked at Vivian. "But it wasn't. Nothing was worth losing myself." The hearing continued for 3 more hours. Testimony, cross-examination, legal arguments that flew over Wyatt's head. Lily fell asleep against his shoulder. Vivian sat rigid beside him, her face a mask. Finally, the judge spoke. "Based on the evidence presented, I'm ruling that this case will proceed to trial. The defendants will remain in custody without bail. Mr. Hale's cooperation agreement is approved pending his full testimony at trial." He banged his gavel. "We're adjourned." The courtroom erupted. Reporters rushed for the exits. Lawyers huddled in urgent conferences. And Vivian sat frozen, staring at Derek as he was led away in handcuffs. "Vivian," Wyatt said softly, "it's over. The trial's moving forward. They're going to convict." "I know." Her voice was distant. "But Wyatt, even if they all go to prison, Derek, the TechCore executives, everyone involved, the damage is done. My company's reputation is destroyed, people died, lives were ruined, and it happened because I trusted the wrong person. That's not on you. Derek made his choices." "But I should have seen it, should have known something was wrong." She finally looked at him. "How do I move forward from this? How do I trust anyone again?" Wyatt shifted Lily to his other shoulder and took Vivian's hand. "The same way I did after Rebecca left. One day at a time, one person at a time. You start with the people who proved they're worth trusting." He squeezed her fingers. "You start with us." Vivian's eyes filled with tears, but she didn't let them fall. Not here, not in public. Instead, she stood, squared her shoulders, and walked out of that courtroom with her head high. And Wyatt followed, Lily in his arms, ready to face whatever came next. The media circus waiting outside the courthouse was exactly what Wyatt had feared. Cameras flashed like strobe lights, reporters shouting questions over each other, microphones thrust forward like weapons. Detective Chen and Officer Reeves formed a protective barrier as they pushed through the crowd, but the questions still landed like punches. "Ms. Cross, how does it feel knowing your CTO tried to kill you? Is it true TechCore offered you a buyout before the assassination attempt? Mr. Mercer, what's your relationship with Ms. Cross?" That last one made Wyatt's jaw tighten. He pulled Lily closer, shielding her face against his chest so the cameras couldn't capture her confusion and fear. Vivian walked beside him with her chin high, refusing to acknowledge the chaos, but he could feel her trembling where their shoulders touched. They made it to the waiting SUV, climbed inside, and the door slammed shut on the noise. Lily stirred against Wyatt's shoulder, blinking sleepily. "Daddy, why were those people yelling? They're just excited, Sunshine. Don't worry about it." "Are we going back to the adventure house?" Wyatt exchanged glances with Detective Chen in the front seat. "Yeah, baby. Back to the adventure house." But Chen's expression was troubled. Once they were moving, she spoke quietly. "We've got a situation. One of the TechCore executives made bail an hour ago. Marcus Thornton, their former VP of operations. His lawyers argued he wasn't a flight risk." Vivian's face went pale. "Marcus was the one who coordinated the hit. Derek said he was the primary contact, the one who paid him directly. I know, and now he's out. Chen's hands tightened on the steering wheel. The judge required an ankle monitor and travel restrictions, but that doesn't mean much if he's desperate. We're increasing security at the safe house, adding more officers to the rotation. How long until the trial? Wyatt asked. 10 days. The DA is fast-tracking it, but that's still 10 days where Marcus Thornton is free and motivated to tie up loose ends. Chen met Wyatt's eyes in the rearview mirror, which means 10 days where you three need to be invisible. No mistakes, no exceptions. The safe house felt smaller when they returned, the walls pressing in with the weight of what came next. Lily went straight to her coloring books, oblivious to the tension radiating from the adults. Officer Reeves did another security sweep while two new officers, Jenkins and Martinez, took up positions outside. Vivian disappeared into the bedroom she'd been using. Wyatt followed, found her standing at the window with her arms wrapped around herself, staring out at the quiet suburban street like it held answers. "Talk to me," he said softly. Marcus Thornton is a sociopath. Brilliant, charming, absolutely ruthless. Her voice was hollow. I've sat across from him in board meetings. I've negotiated contracts with him, and the whole time he was planning my murder. He's not going to succeed. You're protected. Am I? Derek had access to everything, security codes, building layouts, my entire schedule. What if Marcus has the same information? What if he's out there right now planning another attack, and this time we don't see it coming? Wyatt crossed to her, gently turned her to face him. Then we stay alert. We trust the police. We protect each other. His hands framed her face. Vivian, I know you're scared. I'm scared too, but we can't let fear paralyze us. I'm not paralyzed. I'm furious. Her eyes blazed with sudden intensity. I built that company from nothing. I worked 80-hour weeks, sacrificed relationships, gave up everything to make Crosstech what it is. And now some corporate vultures think they can destroy it because I won't sell? Because I had the audacity to be successful on my own terms? So fight back. Not with fear, but with strategy. You're brilliant at strategy. What strategy works against people who want you dead? The one where you survive long enough to watch them go to prison. Where you rebuild what they tried to destroy. Where you prove that Vivian Cross doesn't break. Wyatt's voice was fierce. You're not a victim, remember? You're a survivor. So survive, and then thrive. Show them exactly what happens when you try to kill someone who refuses to die. Something shifted in Vivian's expression, the fear receding, replaced by the steel Wyatt had seen in boardrooms and crisis meetings. She straightened her shoulders, and when she spoke, her voice was steady. You're right, I can't control what Marcus does, but I can control how I respond. She pulled out her phone, started typing. I'm calling an emergency board meeting. Virtual, secure line. If TechCore thinks destroying me will destroy my company, they're wrong. We're implementing contingency plans, restructuring leadership, showing investors we're stronger than ever. That's my girl. Vivian paused, looked up at him. Your girl. Wyatt felt heat creep up his neck. I didn't mean that came out wrong. No. She set the phone down, moved closer. Say it again. You're my girl. The words felt right, solid, true. If you want to be. I want to be. Vivian kissed him softly. I want to be someone's girl, your girl. I want to build something real with you, Wyatt. Something that isn't about money or power or corporate success. Something that's just us. Then that's what we build. After this is over. After the trial. After the threats are gone. After we can breathe again. We build us. They stood there for a moment, foreheads touching, finding strength in closeness. Then Vivian's phone buzzed with responses from her board members, and she was pulled back into the world of conference calls and damage control. Wyatt returned to the living room where Lily was creating an elaborate crayon masterpiece. She looked up when he sat beside her. Daddy, is Vivian sad? A little bit, yeah. She's going through some hard things. Like when Mommy left? The question hit Wyatt like a physical blow. Yeah, sunshine, kind of like that. Lily nodded seriously. When Mommy left, you were sad for a long time, but then you got happy again. Maybe Vivian will get happy again too. I think she will, especially with you around to make her smile. I'm good at making people smile. Lily held up her drawing. Look, I made us a house with a big yard and a swing set and a puppy. The drawing showed a house significantly nicer than their cramped apartment, with 3 stick figures standing in front: tall, medium, small. The medium figure held hands with both the others. That's beautiful, baby. When did you get so good at drawing? Vivian showed me. She said every line tells a story, and you have to draw what you want the story to be. Lily tilted her head. What story do you want, Daddy? Wyatt looked at the drawing, at his daughter's hopeful face, at the bedroom door where Vivian was fighting to save her company. I want the story where we're all happy, all together, safe. Me too. Lily leaned against him. Can we keep Vivian after the adventure is over? I hope so, Sunshine. I really hope so. The next week crawled by in a haze of heightened security and mounting tension. Detective Chen called daily with updates, more arrests, more evidence, TechCore's empire crumbling under the weight of the investigation. But Marcus Thornton remained free, his ankle monitor showing him at his mansion across town, waiting. Vivian worked 16-hour days from the safe house, managing her company through encrypted video calls and secure file transfers. Wyatt watched her transform from the vulnerable woman who'd clung to him in the darkness to the CEO who commanded rooms with a single glance. But late at night, when Lily was asleep and the guards changed shifts, she'd find him and let the armor drop. I'm exhausted, she admitted one night, curled against him on the couch. Not just physically, emotionally. I keep waiting for the other shoe to drop, for Marcus to make his move. Maybe he won't. Maybe the ankle monitor is enough to keep him contained. You don't know him. Marcus doesn't accept defeat. If he's quiet, it's because he's planning something. She closed her eyes. I just want this to be over. I want to wake up in a world where I'm not looking over my shoulder every second. 5 more days until the trial. Then it's done. 5 days feels like forever. But the days passed. Slowly, agonizingly, but they passed. The prosecution sent over their trial strategy. Derek's full testimony was devastating. Names, dates, payments, conversations that implicated every TechCore executive involved. The case was airtight. On the morning of the trial, Wyatt woke to find Vivian already dressed in a navy suit that made her look like she could conquer armies. She was checking her phone, her expression tense. What's wrong? Marcus Thornton's ankle monitor went offline an hour ago. Police are searching for him, but he's in the wind. She looked at Wyatt. He cut it off. He's running. Ice flooded Wyatt's veins. Does Chen know? She's the one who called me. They're increasing security, putting out an APB, treating him as armed and dangerous. Vivian's hands were shaking. Wyatt, what if he comes here? What if he found out where we are? Then the 6 armed officers outside will handle him. Wyatt pulled her close. We're safe. I promise. But promises felt hollow when a desperate man was out there somewhere, motivated by prison time and revenge. They arrived at the courthouse under heavy guard, entering through a back entrance to avoid media. The courtroom was even more packed than the preliminary hearing, every seat filled with people hungry for justice or spectacle or both. The trial began with opening statements. The prosecution painted a picture of corporate greed and calculated murder. The defense tried to argue that their clients had been misled by Derek, that they'd had no knowledge of his actions. But the evidence was overwhelming. Emails, recorded phone calls, financial transfers that drew a straight line from TechCore to Derek to attempted murder. Derek took the stand again, and this time his testimony was even more damning. He walked through every conversation, every payment, every decision that had led to him climbing into that rigging with tools to sabotage a light fixture. When he described the moment he'd realized Vivian was going to die, the moment before Wyatt had tackled her out of the way, several jurors looked physically ill. The defense cross-examined him brutally, trying to paint him as an unreliable narrator, a desperate criminal willing to say anything for a reduced sentence. But Derek held firm. His guilt was too obvious, too complete. He wasn't trying to save himself anymore. He was trying to take down the people who'd turned him into a monster. During the lunch recess, Detective Chen pulled Wyatt and Vivian aside. Still no sign of Marcus Thornton. His passport's been flagged, accounts frozen, Every law enforcement agency in the state is looking for him, but he's smart and he's got resources. What do we do? Vivian asked. We proceed with the trial. We get convictions, and we stay vigilant. Chen's expression was grim. One way or another, this ends today. The afternoon session brought TechCore's CEO to the stand, a man named Richard Voss who looked like someone's grandfather and spoke like a mob boss. He denied everything, claimed ignorance of Derek's actions, insisted his company would never condone murder. The prosecution destroyed him with his own emails, messages discussing eliminating the cross-tech problem, conversations about permanent solutions, transfer receipts for payments to Derek marked as consulting fees that coincided with the sabotage timeline. By the time Voss stepped down, his credibility was shredded. The trial continued for 3 more days. Witness after witness, document after document, building an insurmountable case. The defense tried everything: character assassination, procedural objections, alternate theories. Nothing stuck. On the 4th day, the prosecution rested. The defense declined to call any witnesses, and the case went to the jury. Wyatt, Vivian, and Lily waited in a private room while the jury deliberated. Lily colored quietly, sensing the tension but not understanding its source. Vivian paced like a caged animal. Wyatt watched them both, his heart divided between protecting his daughter's innocence and supporting the woman he'd come to love. What if they don't convict? Vivian asked for the 100th time. They will. But what if... The door opened. Detective Chen stood there, her expression unreadable. Jury's back, 37 minutes. That's fast. They filed back into the courtroom. The jury filed in, faces serious. The judge asked for their verdict. On the charge of conspiracy to commit murder, how do you find? Guilty. On the charge of attempted murder? Guilty. Down the line it went. Guilty, guilty, guilty. Every charge, every defendant. The courtroom erupted. Reporters rushed for exits. Lawyers congratulated each other. And Vivian stood frozen, tears streaming down her face. It's over, she whispered. It's really over. Wyatt pulled her into his arms, and she broke. Really broke. For the first time since this nightmare began. She sobbed into his chest while Lily watched with wide, worried eyes. Why is Vivian crying, Daddy? Because she's happy, Sunshine. Sometimes people cry when they're really, really happy. Oh, okay. Lily went back to her coloring, satisfied with that explanation. They were escorted out through the back entrance again, but this time the energy was different, lighter. The threat was contained. The bad guys were going to prison. Justice had been served. Detective Chen drove them back to the safe house one last time. We'll keep security on you for another week while we process everything, make sure there are no other threats. But you can go home after that, back to your real lives. Real lives. Wyatt tried to imagine what that meant now, going back to their apartment, back to overnight shifts and struggling to make rent. After everything they'd been through, after the bond they'd formed, could they really just return to normal? That night, after Lily was asleep, Wyatt found Vivian on the back porch. She was staring up at the stars, a blanket wrapped around her shoulders against the December cold. Can't sleep? He asked, sitting beside her. Too much in my head. The trial, the company, the future. She leaned against him. Wyatt, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be honest. Always. What happens to us now? We've spent 2 weeks living in this bubble, facing danger together, building something real. But tomorrow, we go back to the real world. You have your apartment, your job, your life with Lily. I have my company, my responsibilities. How do we make this work? Wyatt had been thinking about that question constantly. I don't know, but I know I'm not ready to let you go. Are you? No, but I'm terrified, Wyatt. Terrified that once we're back in our normal lives, this will fade. That you'll realize I'm too complicated, too demanding, too much. And I'm terrified you'll realize I'm not enough. That a maintenance worker with a kid and no college degree can't fit into your world. They sat with that honesty for a moment, 2 people stripped bare by fear and hope in equal measure. Finally, Vivian spoke. So we build a new world, one that fits both of us. I hire management to handle day-to-day operations so I can work reasonable hours. You find a job that pays well and doesn't require overnight shifts. We find a house big enough for all three of us, with a yard like in Lily's drawing. Her voice strengthened. We choose each other, deliberately, consciously, every single day. Not because it's easy, but because it's worth it. You want to live together? You, me, and Lily? I want more than that. Vivian turned to face him, and in the starlight her eyes were luminous. I want to build a family. I want to be the person Lily draws in her pictures. I want to wake up next to you every morning and know that I'm not alone anymore. She took his hands. I know it's fast. I know it's crazy. But Wyatt, I've spent my whole life being careful, being strategic, planning every move. And where did it get me? Almost killed by someone I trusted. Running a company that consumed my entire existence. Alone. You're not alone anymore. Exactly. You showed me what it feels like to have someone fight for me. To have someone see past the armor to the person underneath. To have a reason to come home that isn't just work. Tears slipped down her cheeks. So I'm asking you to take a chance on us. On this. On building something that might not make sense on paper but feels right in every way that matters. Wyatt's throat was tight. I'm a package deal. Lily comes first, always. If you're with me, you're signing up for school plays and parent-teacher conferences and a 6-year-old who's going to test boundaries and ask impossible questions. I know, and I want all of it. The messy, complicated, beautiful reality of being part of a family. Vivian's smile was tremulous. I want to braid her hair when you're running late. I want to help with homework and make terrible pancakes and be there for all the small moments that make a life. I want to be someone she can count on. She already counts on you. She asked me if we could keep you after the adventure is over. Vivian laughed through her tears. What did you tell her? That I hoped so. Wyatt pulled her closer. Vivian Cross, I fell in love with you somewhere between the server room and the safe house. Somewhere between watching you work 18-hour days and seeing you color unicorns with my daughter. And I know it's insane. I know we barely know each other, but I also know that what we have is real, worth fighting for, worth building a life around. You love me? Yeah, I love you. I love you too. Vivian kissed him, soft and sweet and full of promise. So let's do this. Let's build something extraordinary. They stayed on that porch for hours, planning a future that had seemed impossible 2 weeks ago. A house in the suburbs with good schools and a yard. Jobs that allowed for family dinners and weekends together. A life built on trust and partnership instead of fear and isolation. When they finally went inside, Wyatt checked on Lily. She was sprawled across the bed, one arm flung over her stuffed rabbit, dreaming whatever dreams 6-year-olds dreamed. He smoothed her hair back, kissed her forehead. You're getting a new family, sunshine, he whispered. I hope you're ready. The next morning brought news that Marcus Thornton had been captured trying to cross the Canadian border. He'd been arrested, charged, and denied bail permanently. The last loose end was tied up. The nightmare was truly over. Detective Chen arrived to give them the all clear. You're free to go home. Security details officially lifted as of now. But Ms. Cross, I'd recommend private security for the foreseeable future. You've made some powerful enemies. Already arranged, Vivian said. Thank you for everything, Detective. You saved our lives. You saved your own lives. I just provided backup. Chen shook their hands. Good luck to both of you. You've earned some peace. They packed up their few belongings, said goodbye to the officers who'd protected them, and climbed into Vivian's car. A sleek sedan that had been delivered that morning. Lily bounced in her booster seat, excited to finally leave the adventure house. Where are we going, Daddy? Wyatt met Vivian's eyes in the rearview mirror. We're going to look at houses. Real houses, with yards and swings and room for all of us. All of us? Me and you and Vivian? Yeah, sunshine. All of us. Lily cheered and Vivian laughed, and Wyatt felt something in his chest unclench for the first time in weeks. They were safe. They were together. They were building something new. Over the next month, they found a house, a craftsman-style home in a quiet neighborhood with good schools and a backyard big enough for the swing set from Lily's drawings. Vivian bought it outright, insisted on putting all their names on the deed. Wyatt found a job as facilities director for a tech startup, 9 to 5 hours with benefits and a salary that made him dizzy. Vivian restructured Crosstech's leadership, hiring a COO to handle operations while she focused on strategy and innovation. She worked from home 3 days a week, was present for family dinners, actually took weekends off. They moved into the new house on a Saturday in January. Lily ran through the rooms, claiming her bedroom, planning where her toys would go, buzzing with excitement. Movers carried in furniture while Wyatt and Vivian directed traffic. That night, after Lily was asleep in her new bedroom with its princess curtains and glow-in-the-dark stars, Wyatt found Vivian standing in the kitchen of their new home. "You okay?" he asked. "I'm perfect." She turned to him, and her smile was radiant. "I have a home, a real home, with people I love. I never thought I'd have this." "You deserve this. You deserve everything. So do you." Vivian moved into his arms. "Thank you for saving my life, not just from the light or Derek or Marcus, from loneliness, from thinking that success meant sacrificing connection. You showed me a different way. You showed me I was worth more than I thought, that I could be someone's partner, not just someone's employee." Wyatt kissed her. "We saved each other." "Yeah, we did." They stood in that kitchen for a long time, just holding each other, feeling the weight of everything they'd survived and everything they'd built. Outside, Seattle glittered with a million lights. Inside, they'd found something rarer, a family forged in crisis, tempered by trust, stronger for having been tested. Lily appeared in the doorway, rubbing her eyes. "I had a bad dream." Wyatt and Vivian both turned. "Come here, sunshine." She patted over, and Vivian scooped her up without hesitation. "Want to tell us about it?" "I dreamed we had to leave, that the adventure started again and we got separated." Lily's voice was small, worried. "That's not going to happen," Vivian said firmly. "The adventure is over. Now we get to stay together, all of us, in this house, being a family." "Promise?" "Promise." Vivian looked at Wyatt over Lily's head. "We're not going anywhere." Wyatt joined them, wrapped his arms around both his girls, and felt the final pieces of his broken life click into place. They'd survived assassination attempts and corporate conspiracies. They'd faced down killers and testified in court. They'd been hunted through buildings and hidden in safe houses, and they'd come out the other side stronger, braver, more whole than any of them had been alone. 6 months later, Wyatt stood in the backyard watching Lily play on the swing set they'd installed together. Vivian sat beside him on the porch, her laptop open but ignored, just enjoying the early summer sunshine. Crosstech had not only recovered from the scandal, but had thrived, posting record profits after the TechCore executives were convicted. Vivian had become a symbol of resilience, featured in magazines and invited to speak at conferences about surviving corporate sabotage. But she'd turned most of them down, because what mattered now wasn't building an empire, it was building a life. "I got a call today," Vivian said quietly, "from a reporter who wants to write a book about what happened, about the assassination attempt, the trial, all of it." "What did you tell them?" "That they could write whatever they wanted about the business side, but our personal story? That's ours. Private. Not for public consumption." Wyatt took her hand. "Good." "You know what the strangest part is? A year ago, I would have jumped at the chance for that kind of publicity. Anything to build the brand, expand my influence. But now," she gestured at the yard, at Lily laughing on the swings. "This is enough. More than enough. This is everything." "No regrets?" "Not one." Vivian leaned against him. "Well, maybe one. I wish I'd met you sooner. Wish we'd had more time before everything went crazy. We have time now. The rest of our lives." "The rest of our lives," she repeated softly. "I like the sound of that." Lily ran over, breathless and grinning. "Daddy, Vivian, come push me. I want to go really high." They both stood, walked across the grass together, and took turns pushing Lily higher and higher while she shrieked with delight. The sun was warm, the sky was clear, and for the first time in longer than Wyatt could remember, everything felt exactly right. He'd been invisible once, a maintenance worker nobody noticed, a single father struggling to survive. And Vivian had been untouchable, an ice queen in a glass tower. But together they'd become something neither could have achieved alone. A family, a partnership, a love story that had survived the worst and emerged stronger for it. That night, after Lily was asleep and the house was quiet, Wyatt found a small velvet box he'd hidden in his sock drawer. He turned it over in his hands, gathering courage. He found Vivian in their bedroom, fresh from the shower, and reading reports on her tablet. She looked up when he entered, and her expression softened. "Hey, you okay?" "Yeah, He sat beside her on the bed. "I've been thinking about something." "Should I be worried?" "I hope not." Wyatt pulled out the box, watched her eyes go wide. "Vivian Cross, I know we've only been together for 6 months. I know most people would say that's too fast, that we should wait, that we're being reckless. But we've been through more in those 6 months than most people experience in a lifetime. And I'm tired of waiting for the right moment, because every moment with you is right." Tears were already streaming down her face. "You saved my life by seeing me when I was invisible. You gave me a chance when anyone else would have fired me. You chose us when you could have chosen safety." His voice cracked. "And I want to spend the rest of my life choosing you back. So Vivian, will you marry me?" He opened the box. The ring was simple, elegant, perfect. A sapphire the color of her eyes surrounded by small diamonds. Vivian covered her mouth with her hands, sobbing openly now. "Yes, yes, of course, yes." Wyatt slipped the ring on her finger, and she launched herself into his arms, kissing him with the fierce joy of someone who'd found what they didn't know they were searching for. When they finally pulled apart, both breathless and laughing and crying, Vivian whispered, "I can't believe I almost lost this. Almost lost you." "But you didn't. We survived. We won." "We won," she agreed. And as they fell asleep tangled together, the ring catching moonlight on Vivian's hand, Wyatt thought about how far they'd come. From a frosted glass door and a desperate apology to this, a home, a family, a future built on trust and tested by fire. The invisible man and the untouchable CEO had saved each other in every way that mattered, and they were just getting started.